Welcome to the Stade de France. I'm Sarah Orchard and I'm delighted to say we are here for match day 2 of the Rugby World Cup. We were here last night, of course, for the big dance, the big opener, which was, of course, France against New Zealand. Well, it was France who eventually pulled away, took that one 27-13 to inflict the first ever pool stage defeat on the All Blacks. Already today in Pool A, Italy thumped Namibia 52 points to 8, and Ireland, they've just put in quite the shift, beating Romania 82 points to 8, that one in Pool B. We're about to dip our toes though into Pool C for the first time. It's going to be Australia, now of course led by Eddie Jones, 9th in the world, and of course the hosts of the next World Cup in 2027. They're going to be taking on Georgia, the Lelos, 11th now in the world and perhaps one of the rising stars on the world stage. I'm delighted to say I'm joined for this one alongside me by former England fly half and 2003 World Cup winner Paul Grayson. Paul, I have to say, it's not as hot as we thought it was going to be.
No, thankfully.
Yes.
Having said that, a 10-minute walk to the stadium from the taxi drop-off point, I was beading a little bit, but it was nice to walk up. Obviously, we were here last night and it was ram-packed, wasn't it? 3 hours before the game, people queuing to get in. Slightly more relaxed today. Nice to see the profile of people coming in. Lots of parents with little kids. It's more of a half and half scarf day with. I saw one lady with one Georgian sock on, one Australian sock, talking French, so they're all bought into the game. It should be a great atmosphere.
Yeah, of course. We're going to be focusing on Australia against Georgia here in Pool C. This one kicks off in the next 9 minutes. And then, of course, don't forget, in Pool D, it's England against Argentina. That one's going to kick off at 8 o'clock tonight, and that one will be live on BBC Radio 5 Live. Right, as we wait for the teams to appear, let me just run you through the 2 lineups, starting with Australia. Surprise selection for them at fullback as Ben Donaldson is given the shirt. There's no Andrew Kellaway in this lineup for Australia, not even on the bench. We've got Mark Nwanga Tawazi, who's wearing 14, Marika Korobetti at 11. Into the centres, it's Jordan Pataya and Samu Karevi, and then Carter Gordon is at 10 with Tate McDermott at 9. McDermott, of course, vice-captain now for the Wallabies. Into the front row, it's Bell Parecki and Tupou. Special mention to Tupou, who wins his 50th cap today. Arnold and Skelton make up the second row. Will Skelton captains the Wallabies. He's only captained them for the first time in their last match against France. He was the surprise selection by Eddie Jones again. You can really feel this is an evolving side at the moment, the Wallabies. And the back row, not made up of a Michael Hooper, but of course a Tom Hooper wears 6. Fraser McWright, the rising star, at 7, and Rob Valentini at 8. On the bench, it's Fessler, Shoup, Nongor, Leota, Gleeson, White, Fakate, and Vunivalu. Moving then on to Georgia. You might remember some of these names, particularly after that COVID period when Georgia came and played against the home nations and that sort of revamped Six Nations. There wasn't too much travel going on at the time. So David Niniashvili is at fullback. Akatabasadze, now keep an eye on that name, he's quite the try scorer. Miriam Mobadze, he's at 11. You've got Sharikadze and Tabladze, they're going to be into the centres. Makava and Lobhanze, they're going to be make up your halfback combination, and then moving into the forwards, Nika Abaladze, Shavla Mamakashvili, and then at 3 it's Guram Papizadze. Moving into that really big engine room, you know, these big men, of course, for Georgia, Noda Chayashvili, Konstantin Mikotadze, and then in the back row, Tana Jagona, Luka Ivanashvili, and then Becca Gogadze make up that back row. Moving on to the bench then for Georgia, Zamratadze, Gogiashvili, Gigiashvili, Jayani, Tazutsi Kiradze, Apizadze, Abahanze, and then Kevasladze. Easy for me to say. We're going to get there slowly, work our way through those Georgian pronunciations. But the big thing about Georgia, we have to say, Paul Grayson, I said they've got big men in the forwards there, but that's a bit of a slight on them these days. They are not just a scrum. If anything, it's their backs now that are most impressive about them.
Yeah, and previously 90% of the Georgian players who played professional rugby in France were in the front row. That was their area of dominance, and the occasional back rower. Marika Gorgodze, the legend, played in France his whole career, an absolute giant of a man, and that was the signature of Georgian rugby. But the halfbacks, Lobshanidze and Makaba, both play in France, Brive and Lyon respectively, so they're not signing for teams in the third tier of French rugby. They're right in the mix. It's like Paolo Garbisi moving to Montpellier from Italy. It's a sign of the quality of these players. So when they go home, they take the intellect that they gained through playing in the top league in France back to their team, and that cycle of growth and development, and new heroes for the Georgian kids to look at. So they've got a bit more all around the park, and in David Niniashvili, he is genuinely class. He's a bit of an Ange Capwork, so he's a firebrand fullback, absolute gas, game changer. So it's brilliant that they're developing those players who are good enough to play across Europe.
Well, I can tell you that the teams are starting to emerge from their dressing rooms. We got to see on the big screens them just going through their final preparations. It was actually really interesting. The Australians all gave a handshake and sort of a slap on the back, while as the Georgians were much bigger hugs and cuddles, I have to say. A little bit more emotional, perhaps continental in their way of approaching each other. But we can see the Webb Ellis Trophy is here in the Stade de France. It's down by the tunnel right now as we see Will Skelton stepping up to the plate. Alongside him it's Sharakadze wearing 12, who will both hold on to their mascots. Big smiles for both the mascots. Will Skelton. Now, we discussed this a little bit earlier, and I was fascinated for you to explain, Paul Grayson. These players should be sweating right now after a warm-up. It's not just due to the heat.
No, absolutely. Obviously, you'll modify your warm-up slightly because it is so hot, but ultimately you need to be at race pace before you go back into the changing rooms. There's no point trying to find you're almost into your second wind before you start the game these days, such as the intensity of the warm-ups and the levels that they need to get to.
Okay, here they come. Listen to the roar. Well, there you go, out onto the field to a wonderful reception here by this Stade de France crowd. The Wallabies, of course, in their green and gold, going off to the left-hand side of the field. And the Georgians, they're playing in white today with maroon-red colours on their back. They go off to the right-hand side. We will, of course, have the anthem still to come here. Just a reminder, our focus here then is Pool C. Now, this is the same pool as Wales, so it's Australia, Wales, Fiji, Georgia and Portugal. Portugal, of course, they are the newcomers to the Rugby World Cup. Yet to see them perform just yet. Right then, your referee for this one will be Luke Pearce of England, and he is in the middle. And we will now take to our feet as we hear the anthems.
Ladies and gentlemen, in honor of both teams, please stand for the national anthems of Australia and Georgia.
Listening to 5 Live Sports Extra, coming to you from the Rugby World Cup. Australia against Georgia, and now the Georgian anthem. The Stade de France is on its feet. They are ready for more world be. Both sides just going off into the middle of the field right now. Let us not forget that, of course, Australia, they are now coached by Eddie Jones, the former England coach who was famously sacked just before Christmas, and then the big announcement that came that Steve Porthert would come in and take on that England side. Interesting, of course, the Georgian coach, Levent Mayashvili, he's a little bit of a cult hero in rugby circles. He actually took over the team from Milton Haig after the last World Cup, and Georgia famously went to play South Africa ahead of the 2021 Lions tests. Why that was significant was he actually caught COVID whilst he was in South Africa. He ended up in hospital for 2 months and placed on a ventilator with serious lung damage. He has fully recovered to come back and lead this side, but he has said it's completely changed his outlook on life. But his commitment to the team and what Georgia actually had to go through to play that one test against a Tier 1 nation, which was a huge moment for them, just showed the lengths that they would go to make sure they got top-level rugby.
Yeah, extraordinary story. That almost cost him his life. Georgia deserve respect. They play the game the right way. They've traditionally played to their strengths up front. They've expanded their game. They're desperate, routinely win the European Rugby Championship, desperate to stake a claim for more Tier 1 access. It's how they're going to grow the game. Today is a fantastic opportunity for them to put a marker down against an Australian team, low on results, and you suspect low on confidence.
Yeah, certainly, and we will explain to you a little bit more about the Rugby Europe Championship, because I appreciate a lot of people won't have heard a huge amount about it if you're a big Six Nations fan, so we'll explain a little bit more about that as the commentary goes on. But we are about to get underway shortly. I can tell you it's actually Ben Donaldson who is stood in the middle of the field at the moment next to Luke Pearce, waiting to get Australia underway. Interesting selection around Ben Donaldson. We are expecting him to take the kicks today. Carter Gordon, who's playing fly half for Australia, has struggled a little bit in that area, but it'll be Australia that get us underway, travelling from left to right as the crowd signal, let's go. Donaldson sends the ball into the Paris sky, and it comes down to Georgia, who are inside of their 22 by a good couple of metres, and all the white shirts flood in just to shore up the ball calmly, waiting for Lobahanze of Brive, the scrum half, to arrive. He just wants another forward to create a bit of a long caterpillar so he can box kick that one down the far side wing. Underneath it is Carter Gordon. He manages to feed it back to Donaldson. He's going to say, I tell you what, Georgia, we'd like to keep you in your 22, so if you could just stay there a bit longer, it would be fantastic. Nini Ashvili, though, he comes back in kind. It's received by Gordon this time as he approaches the halfway line. So the Georgians being pinned back for the time being, and they're going to have to box a little bit more clever to make some more space as McCarver then sends it back. And Georgia having to watch Australia once again come from their own 10 metre. This time we get to see Nwanga Tawazi coming towards the halfway line as it goes out of play inside of the 22. And it was a 50-22, not a bad time a minute into game to pull one off.
No, that's a little bit of kick tennis. Australia happy to push the ball down the middle of the field and find grass. A couple of average kicks, clearance kicks to be fair, from Georgia. Then brilliant work from the Australian right winger, drilling the ball hard along the floor. Australian line-out.
Ball comes in then by Parecki, finds his man, and it is the man himself, Nwanga Tawazi, who we're going to speak about no doubt a lot in this game as it goes forward through the Australian forwards, taken this time by the big man, the captain, Skelton. Needs a bit more support to arrive to help him out. Over the top of it as well is Valentini. 5 metres left for Australia to open their Rugby World Cup account. It's Valentini again, who's been an ever-present in this Australia squad this year. Remember, they haven't got a win under their belt in the whole of 2023. It's been a bit of a torrid time for them. The playbook's been a little bit ripped up by Eddie Jones. He said he's trying to do something different, and they're just getting used to it as they go out towards the far side. Is that over in the corner? Australia score. Early doors. Touchdown. It's now Australia 5, Georgia 0.
Nothing too complicated about that from Australia. From the line out, worked a little back peel, and it's bang, bang, bang with the forwards as soon as they get on the front foot. Jordan Pataya carries the ball close to the line, bounces out of the tackle. 360 spin, jams the ball down next to the left-hand corner flag. Will knock the wind out of the sails of the Georgian defenders, desperate to take a shot. That good kick into the corner, which the 50-22 immediately put them under pressure. Not a complicated finish, but a powerful one.
Well, as we alluded to, Ben Donaldson is going to be taking this kick for the Wallabies. It's a couple of metres out from the far side touch, and he's taken it back over the 22-metre line. And we will talk more with Paul Grayson after this kick about the significance of this. Is if there is one frailty at the moment in this sort of, there's a lot of frailties, let's face it, in the way Australia have been playing recently, but one problem has been their goal kicking. Carter Gordon only winning his 6th cap today. Ben Donaldson only winning his 4th. He's traditionally a fly half. Eddie Jones has insisted that he has played a huge amount at fullback in training, but not necessarily in a test, and he's particularly brought in because of his goal kicking ability. So let's watch this one as he misses that on the first occasion. Talk us through this goal kicking conundrum Eddie Jones has.
Well, look, you pick a team without a recognised goal kicker, and then one of your non-recognised goal kickers doesn't kick goals very well. It doesn't take a genius to work out that maybe you should have somebody who's actually on his job spec when he starts the game. So that's a problem of his own making. It's an added pressure though. Someone like Carter Gordon, Donaldson goes off. It's a huge added pressure for somebody who's perhaps not quite at world-class level yet.
So it's Australia 5, Georgia 0. 3 minutes played here at the Stade de France as the ball comes back. It's been charged down by Georgia. Carter Gordon didn't get him away. Wonderful work comes in by Jalongia. He was the man who got his hands on it, and he's hurt himself in the process. It's a penalty also for Georgia inside of the Wallaby 22. It's actually the scrum half, Lobhanze, who managed to get in there. I think he got absolutely walloped for his efforts, but what an effort.
Carter Gordon immediately under pressure as soon as the ball was passed. The Georgian 9 out of the blocks. Like all good scrum halves, just sneak up behind the ruck. Don't look like you're going to get involved. And as soon as hands are on, and in fairness to him, he went up, caught the ball above his head, two-handed, beat Gordon to the punch. Awkward landing as he landed on his his backside, for a better want of a better phrase.
He is okay, we have to say, lobs your hands up, but it is going to be now an opportunity for the fly half, McCarver of the Black Lion Club, to take this conversion. It's a far more straightforward one than we just saw for Donaldson, to the right-hand side of the uprights, but very close up front. And Georgia are on the board in the Rugby World Cup. It's now Australia 5, Georgia 3. And it's moments like that that could just give Georgia something in this game.
That's what they need. They need to stay close to Australia. Don't let that lead treacle out without Australia having to do something excellent to get their points. As long as they can keep it close, get to the last 20 minutes. Australia a bit more nervous.
Donaldson then with a restart for Australia. It's going to come down just inside of the Georgian 22. Forwards go in, just flood over the top of the ball to make it sure. Lobzahansa is there. He wants a few more forwards just to take it on. Papazidze is in there. Needs a few more players. It's quite deep. So there's a warning there for Georgia that they've taken the ball inside of their own 22, so they can't kick it straight out. And it's gone high into the air. Have they done just that? I mean, the warning was there. I mean, this is going to be a big question about... I mean, I think the scrum half knows he's just marked that one up. I was about to say it's about a language barrier, but I think he knows.
Well, Luke Pearce, an excellent referee. Never short on comms. Speaks brilliant French.
Georgia, step.
Not so clever on the Georgian.
Yeah.
Georgia, step.
I think there's only so many language we can expect our referees to speak.
Number 4, I asked you twice to step.
Well, interesting there. Free kick to Australia because Georgia didn't move back away from the central line there from the line out. So free hit here for the Wallabies, who take it forward. And this time it's been knocked on. I mean, this is just a comedy of errors from both sides. As it was Angus Bell who mucked up there. Did he not kick the ball when he took it? I'm just trying to see. Or if he knocked it on in the process. Yeah, he knocked it on in the contact.
A straight knock on there. Mamakashvili, the Georgian hooker, with a strong shot. It's funny, isn't it? Indicative of a team who aren't absolutely sure of themselves. Australia there. Normally if you get a free kick from a line-out, you know exactly what you're going to do. The ball goes to 9, he taps it, plays immediately. You might run the back smooth that you're going to run off the line-out in any case. They all stood around for a second, had a look at each other, had a debate, took a slow tap, I beg your pardon, and managed to knock it on.
Something about this Australian side that is looking positive is the size and weight of their pack right now. I mean, any pack that's got Will Skelton in the middle of it, if you've never seen him, he's an absolute giant of a man. Huge amount of weight he puts behind it, but Georgia have managed to come away with that ball. And we can see a few more of the dancing feet here of as he approaches his own 22-metre line, but there's no scrum half now. It comes down to the fly half, McCarver, to try and get that ball away and get those forwards moving. Now, Georgia have got to learn how to exit out of their 22. There's been a few situations now, only 8 minutes into this game, where they're getting a little bit stuck in porridge. And there's a charge down by Skelton. This is exactly the problem that Georgia are facing. They need to get away. They can't run themselves out of trouble. They've got to find their kicking boots and they've got to find them faster. It could be a very long afternoon at the wrong end of the field. Eventually the ball goes high into the air. It's going to land down on the halfway, taken by Korobetti. And he runs sideways across the field and puts some gas on the ball. Wonderful running by Korobetti. Still going. Pops off the ball. Manages to find support in Karevi. There's still another man outside him, this time in the form of Pattaya, the try scorer. Georgian bodies all over the floor in the Wallabies' wake. They've still got 10 metres to travel. Taken forward this time by McDermott. The scrum half is caught. He wanted to find Nwanga Tawazi. He gets stopped short as well, but it was the brilliant run by Korobetti that caught the excitement of the crowd here at the Stade de France. Australia 5, Georgia 3, and once again the Wallabies attacking inside of the Georgian 22. Popped off ball is Nwanga Tawazi, surely a score. That's what he does. It's only his 8th test today, Nwanga Tawazi. That is his 5th try in a Wallaby shirt. He is an exciting prospect.
Great athlete, real top-end speed and good instincts for the game. But Korobetti in counter-attack, he ran directly across the field, parallel to the halfway line, and stepped hard off his right foot, drove between two Georgian defenders who just weren't strong enough to cope with his power and acceleration. Found a half gap, made it a whole gap. Karevi was slightly obstructed and then flicked a pass out of the back door. One ruck later, the ball recycled and a walk in, but kicked badly to this Australian back three, particularly Korobetti. He will slice you up.
Well, although we've had tries here, I feel that we're going to spend a lot of time in this game actually discussing kicking, because both sides have issues, but in very different ways. We're about to watch Ben Donaldson line up this conversion. Again, he's got this one quite tight to this near side touchline, so he's got to get a nice little bit of a turn on it. He missed the other one from the far side as he takes his run up, uses his right boot. This is the easier side for him, and he's got that one, so that will settle a few nerves. When I talk about exiting for Georgia, can you just explain those different concepts to people who might not be as familiar with it, Paul Grayson?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're in possession of the ball in your own half, particularly in your own 22, the common parlance to get out of your half, to move yourself up the field, whether that's by running or kicking, they call it an exit strategy. It's based on putting the ball in the right place, having people in attendance to make tackles. If you kick badly, it gives the opposition a chance to run. It's exactly what's happened here.
From the restart, McDermott has it for Australia. Just managed to get the Wallabies outside of their own 22. The Georgian white line is running up into the face of Carter Gordon. He sends it down the field. Waiting underneath it is the fly half, Luka Matava. McCarver manages to make his run towards the halfway line. He's made a good bit of space there, and of course he wasn't interested in kicking that one. And it'll be interesting to see how this Georgian kicking strategy develops. That one to Carter Gordon is kicked through. He then sends it back. Really high long ball there by Gordon, is pushing all of the back three there from Georgia to turn, but he's put a little bit too much on it. Georgia have decided not to touch it down, because of course if they did, that would be a goal line dropout, and they're running it out of trouble on this near side. McCarver is there. He manages to pop it back inside. This time he's got support there by Ivan Ashvili. Ball down on the floor, given back to Georgia. This is the brighter passage of play that we've seen so far. Australia 12, Georgia 3 here as we go towards the 12-minute mark here on 5 Live Sports Extra. Ball on the floor, box kick comes in, a very nervous box kick comes in by Lapanze, because Will Skelton is just lurking around every ruck at the moment. He's already had one charge down, and when you are as tall as he is, you wouldn't bet against him maybe getting another. Angus Bell, Waratah's prop, still only 22 years old. A real theme of this Wallaby side is how young they are. They are the youngest side at this World Cup. Average age is 26.5 years old. Ball's going to come back down to Georgia. Big handoff trying to come in there on Nwanga Tawazi from Nini Ashvili, now playing his rugby at Lyon, appearing in his first World Cup at 21 years old. Georgia inside of their own half. Not too much pressure, but it's Skelton in there causing the problems, but it's Georgia off their feet.
Never recovered, killed contest. Number 4.
Solid here from Will Skelton on the ball carrier. And Cheshvili, the second row. I mean, he went to clear Will Skelton, in all fairness. Skelton didn't move, and then he chopped down across the ball, which meant there was no contest for it. It meant that Will Skelton could have no active role in trying to recover possession from the Georgians. It is a penalty. They're going to have to find a way to speed the game up. This Georgian team, I wouldn't suggest running into Will Skelton is the way to do it.
There's a complete sidebar to everything that is irrelevant, and I know some people hate this, but Guram Papadze, the tight head for Georgia, has the most fantastically enormous grey beard, which, as brilliant as it looks, I'm just thinking I'd shave that off on a day like today. It would be too much.
Yeah. He has got a face sweater on.
He really does. Right, Donaldson lining up the kick here for Australia. He's 1 from 2 with the boot at the moment. It's a little bit further out than his last 2. It's just behind the Georgian 10-metre line, but it's about 17 metres or so from this near side touch as Donaldson takes his run up. Very high ball as it heads towards the post, and he's got that one, and this is what Eddie Jones wanted Ben Donaldson to do. Kick the goals, and that is what he's doing.
Yeah, another good strike. He's not had 3 straightforward kicks there. He's had 1 from the very left-hand touchline, 1 from 2 or 3 metres in from the right-hand touchline, and that one 42 or 3 metres out. He's made 2 out of 3, which would be ahead of the stats on those 3 kicks by a little bit, so a good start for him.
Australia 15, Georgia 3 here on 5 Live Sports Extra. 14 minutes on the clock. Georgia have had their moments in this fixture, but it has all been about the Wallabies, who, let us not forget, have not won a test so far this year. Georgia, they are the reigning Rugby Europe champions, but they're endlessly asking, appealing that they need more tests against the top tier nations. They know that they're frequently the best of the rest, but they need more.
Absolutely no pressure there on Carter Gordon to clear his lines. Obviously the heat just taking the sting out of that rush defence from Georgia. Carter Gordon almost had so long. Ended up shanking it straight into touch. He could have put it anywhere.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure he'll be happy with the playback of where that one actually ended up, because it's a Georgian line out inside of the Wallaby half, and it is Gogadze who's going forward, but they've ended up crossing Georgia there, and it's just such wasted ball from a brilliant position, and now the Wallabies have it, and it's taken quickly by McDermott, who has slammed it down the field. It's a bouncing ball. Is it going to go well for him? It is Georgia that gather it, so there's not going to be a line out. Sent back in the end by Nini Ashvili. So a little bit of a waste there by Australia, but they've still got it back in hand, and they are enjoying their running rugby right now. Kick through in the end by... They've just put a little bit too much gas on that one. It was run through by Nwanga Tawazi, and it's going to come back for the goal line dropout.
He does like that kick on the run from his own half, 50-22. He drives into the top of the ball, puts top spin on it. Really clever way of getting a tricky bounce, looking for that 50-22. The ball's only got to go about 30 metres to get one. Clever play.
Well, it's pushed Georgia back to a goal line dropout, so the ball flies into the sky once again, and the Wallabies wait to receive it underneath the halfway line. Marika Korobetti, who now plays his rugby for the Wild Knights in Japan, manages to go in and gather it, gets a bit of support in there by Karevri as well, another player in Japan, this time for Sungoliath, and Bell is having a little bit of a charge the prop down the far side wing. A few jeers just go round the crowd there. Not too sure what that was for. There's plenty of Wallaby fans who are here this evening. Crossfield kick comes in by Carter Gordon. Waiting underneath it. There's a really great take there by Nwanga Tawazi. Good support coming in also by the try scorer there in Pataya.
Taken back by Georgia.
So it's going to be restarted then by scrum for the Wallabies, 5 metres out from the Georgian line.
Yeah, no massive threat in attack from Australia. They play a couple of phases, happy to set up for that crossfield kick and back. Nwanga Tawaze to win in the air, which he did. He got the offload away to Rob Valentini, flick over the top, another offload from Jordan Pataya, but a Georgian hand in there, but it slapped it back from in front of their own try line over their dead ball line. So Australia will get possession and a 5-metre scrum, 6 or 7 metres in from the right-hand touchline.
17 minutes played. I think it's a little bit unfair that the Mexican wave is already going round. This isn't a bad game.
We're in France. They do a Mexican wave whenever they want, whether it's boring, whether it's interesting. They did one yesterday before the game had even started.
Well, there you go. And that's what the booing was about, because I've just realised we've got some of the expensive seats just below us here in the commentary area, and they weren't standing up to do the Mexican wave. So they were the ones who were getting right royally booed for not taking part. Meanwhile, there's a big scrum going on. It's a big shove here for Australia. We've got advantage now on the scrum. And a warning there for Georgia for being offside, and a penalty here. Big decision of what the Wallabies actually choose to do, because again, as much as we said it's a little bit cooler than yesterday, it's still in really tough conditions to play in, and they need to think about conserving their energy slightly.
Yeah, they're under the pump at the moment. Australia looking very strong in that front five. A couple of really well contested scrums. That time they got the upper hand. They go to scrum again. Georgia won't take a step back here. Certainly not mentally, but physically they might get done.
Well, they're going to pack down once again. So from the penalty, the Wallabies have decided that they want to scrum once again. Well, I can think of a lot of different decisions in this heat, but they're feeling that they've got the upper hand in this area. Reminder, in the front rows, you've got Bell, Parecki and Tupou going up against Abeladze, Mamukashvili and Papizadze. Ball comes in then from Australia, and that is a bit of a shove there by Australia. Comes in towards the centre again, this time Karevi taking it forward. 1 metre for Australia to travel. They're looking now for a third try in this match. Penalty advantage once again for the Wallabies. It's Georgia who are offside. The Wallabies getting closer. Australia want try number 3. They want to wrap up that bonus point well before half-time. And referee Luke Pearce doesn't know if that's gone over the line or not. Is he going to go and check?
Hang on, mate. You lost it forward, have you? So no need to check. No need to check. You haven't scored the try. Good honesty. Thank you very much. No try.
We like that. Taniela Tupou on his 50th cap would have loved to try there, but they're not even going to bother going to look at it, because he said, yeah, I lost it, mate.
Yeah, good on him, because he did. Saves everybody time. Let's get on with it again.
Nobody wants to be out here any longer than they have to be, but it was penalty advantage for the offside. So Australia, don't get me wrong, if this was a quarter-final, if this was a semi-final, maybe they make a different decision, but right decision for Ben Donaldson to kick at goal.
Lads, water break after the kick, okay?
There you go, takes them into the water break.
Just let Georgia know.
Yeah, they've had 2 or 3 really strong scrums there, gone for it, made the mistake at the line. They're not in any trouble at the moment. Where are we at? 12-point game, take it beyond the 14 with this penalty. So chronologically it makes sense. Gives everybody a blow, and they'll get another couple of minutes after this to get their water bottles on, because it's so hot. I think in 5 or 6 days, looking at the weather forecast, the weather breaks and we get out of this hot snap, and the temperature drops by 10 degrees. So enjoy the sunshine, but it's going to be a chilly 24 or 25 next week.
Oh, well, I have to say that the people I'm most concerned about the moment as Donaldson lines up this kick, and of course he's going to get it. Yes, he is. So that takes Australia then to 18, Georgia 3 as we go into the water break. I'm most concerned about the fans who are on the far side of the Stade de France, because there's a big circle of sunshine. There's probably taking in, I don't know, a good 10,000 people on that side, and they're the ones who are copping the worst of it. I hope they brought their sun cream with them. When it comes to Australia and Georgia, we've talked a lot about Australia. Let's talk a little bit about Georgia and their place here. They come into this as 11th in the world, and we talked a little bit about the Rugby Europe Championship. This is unofficially what we'll call Six Nations B, some people decide to call it. It's now got 8 teams in it. Georgia have won it frequently. They play along the likes of Portugal, Romania, Spain, Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, Poland. How badly do these sides, don't get me wrong, it's brilliant they play against each other, but we've said it a lot of times already, we've seen Georgia here, they need to be playing the big boys more often.
Yeah, and I think the prime example of that have been Argentina, who over generations produced, occasionally they'd have a team that would genuinely challenge. They'd have a couple of star players, Pichot, Contepomi, Hugo Porter, generations gone past, but never had the exposure to regular competition. As soon as they went into Super Rugby, had their own a franchise, then into the Rugby Championship, they got hammered early doors, and then suddenly you've got players playing together all the time, exposed to higher quality, then they're a World Cup semi-finalist in not so many years. So that's the example of what can happen if you get regular exposure to better teams. Who doesn't work in any industry where you learn by working with someone who's better than you? They teach you, and you're into that cycle of learning. So it is absolutely right. It is the only way. It'll be interesting to see over the next year or two how it unfolds, because it's a need, not a want.
I'm wondering if I spend enough time with you, Paul Grayson, if my kicking will get any better, but that would probably involve us actually going out and kicking, and I never want you to see me kick a ball, is the good news. We did just have a big flash up on the big screen, by the way, of Mamoka Gorgodze, who is about as close to Georgian rugby royalty as you'll ever get, a name that rugby union fans will be familiar with if you followed a few World Cup cycles in your time, but of course now retired. As we get play back underway here, Australia 18, Georgia 3, 21 minutes on the clock. Deep once again by the Australians, as the Georgians, a little bit of a kick step as they run it towards the halfway. They're less and less likely to try and kick this one away, as we see Miriam Modbadze absolutely smashed backwards as he went into contact with very little conviction. And all of a sudden Georgia, they could have been on the halfway line, and they're now playing between their own 10 and the 22. As more forwards are brought in for ballast, and these forwards don't want to run around like this. Warning then for the ball to be got away there by Lobsahansa, and it comes down this time down the throat there of Donaldson, who's happy to send it back with kind, and all of a sudden Georgia back inside of their 22 again. This is becoming a very familiar story.
Inside, lads.
Sent back by Georgia on this near side. Now that's a better exit from them. They've managed to push Australia back inside of their half between the 10 and the 22 for the lineup.
Yeah, good kick from Mubadze. He was fed into the mixer by Ninyashvili, the phase before. 2 side steps from the fullback, and then gave his left winger an absolute hospital pass, clattered by Georgia, Jordan Pataya. But a good clearing kick gives them some respite.
Well, we get to see McWright on the ball. A lot of people excited about what Fraser McWright could do in a Wallabies shirt. Again, a young man, just 24 years old, plays his rugby for the Queensland Red. As he grew up playing rugby, probably one of the most decorated young age grade players. It's no surprise at all that he is now wearing the green and gold. A lot of people think that he is going to be the next Hooper. Michael Hooper, that is, not Tom Hooper, is playing at 6.
They've got another Hooper already.
You know what I mean, don't you, Paul Grayson? You do know. Of course, we haven't even discussed Michael Hooper yet, who was, of course, Australia captain. As the ball is knocked on by Australia, will restart with the Georgian scrum inside of their own half by 10 metres. I haven't even mentioned the fact that Michael Hooper hasn't actually made it into this squad. Were you surprised when Eddie Jones dropped him?
Eddie's Eddie, isn't he? He does prefer a young team. His record shows that he's better with young players rather than old players. Perhaps less challenging of him as a person, more compliant, fits into his style of management, which we know what that's all about. So yeah, and also I think it's a free hit for Australia this World Cup. They brought Eddie home after he was jettisoned by England. They've not had the bounce with the players, using some of those older players. They haven't seen a bounce.
9.
This World Cup's a free hit with an eye on a home World Cup in 4 years' time.
Well, as these two sides just pack down, we've talked a lot about the rugby that's still to come here today at the World Cup, but there's going to be even more for you tomorrow as well. 3:30 tomorrow on 5 Live Sports. Sonia McLaughlin, she's going to present all the build-up to Scotland's first game at the Rugby World Cup, of course against the world champions South Africa. Kick-off for that one is at 4:45. Andrew Cotter, Johnny Beattie and Bobby Skinstad will be there for that one. As the ball comes away towards this near side for Georgia, hacked on through. Donaldson gathers for the Wallabies inside of the 22. Right boot comes in. That's gone out of play on this near side. Just waiting to see where the touch judge decides that line out's going to be. It will be a Georgian line out between their own 10 and the 22. Exiting is getting a little bit better for Georgia, but they're still stuck most of the time at the wrong end of the field. We haven't really seen a potent attack.
No, they're trying to inch their way up the field. A decent scrum on the far side, and then a back play out to the left wing. The intention to give Ninyashvili enough room for the kick, which he got. Long clearance from the Australian fullback, but they are still trapped in their own half, Georgia.
And they're passing the ball to each other sometimes, the Georgians, a little bit like they don't like each other, which doesn't help the flow of the game or the speed at which they can play it at either. As once again Lobsahansa is down there trying to dig the ball out the scrum half. 26 years old, actually playing at his 3rd Rugby World Cup now as he racks up at his 79th cap, so he's no stranger to these situations. Big running came in there by Nwanga Nitawazi. He knocked on the ball in the process, so Georgia have it now. Apparently advantage is over. I don't know if Georgia will be that happy with that, but they will be now because they're flying away down the far wing. They've managed to hack it on. Can they get there? A real chase. It's going to end up being touched down by Australia. What a hack through there by Aka Tabasadze. He is a dangerous player. It's a goal line dropout for Australia, but Aka Tabasadze, we knew he's dangerous. Potent try scorer. He's got skills.
Yeah, aerial contest, and the ball goes forward from Australia straight onto the counter-attack. Georgia, the ball whipped out to Niniashvili on the outside. A little in and out outside break just created the space and put Tabasadze away, and then Tabasadze with a fullback 10 metres away from him, chipped ahead way too soon. He had a real opportunity there to...
Oh my goodness,
That's not good.
Georgia.
We'll come back to that in a sec. He had a real opportunity to put some footwork on the fullback or get close to him and chip over the top. As it was, he went too early, put boot to ball, gave himself no chance in the chase. But enterprising play from Georgia.
And then after all of that, from the restart, Beka Gogadze manages to knock it on as he receives the ball inside of his own half on the 10-metre line, gifting Australia a scrum.
Centre field scrum too on the 10-metre line. They got both sides to attack. That was their brightest spot in the game so far. Gogadze's not his finest moment.
A bit of space.
They're watching the replay on the big screen there of that attempt by Aka Tabasadze to try and run that one down the right-hand wing. He's actually scored 8 tries in the Rugby Europe Championship earlier this year. He's got the most line breaks, 10 tries in total this season. He's a real force. A lot of people thought Niniashvili was the one to watch, but it seems to be Tabasadze this season in particular who's really stepped up to the plate. Right, scrum down, Wallabies ball. Comes out in the end to... No, it was held in by Australia.
I did, mate.
Let's listen in.
I was looking at the scrum. Reset, Australia ball. Up on the mark.
I think Australia can be a little bit aggrieved with that decision by Luke Pearce.
Yeah. The scrum never moved off its spot, and eventually Tipo on the tight head stood up, and Abeladze on the loose head for Georgia stood up, at which point the referee said, OK, Australia, which basically means play the ball away. And then as the scrum broke up, Australia walked forward. So I think it's the right call in the end. Interesting, though, that Australia are taking Georgia on in that aspect of the game. Their fitness probably beginning to tell with 28 minutes gone.
There's a lovely bit of footwork at the back of that scrum by Rob Valentini, doing what all good number 8s can and just try and control that ball at the back to make sure it doesn't come out too early. He'll be frustrated after he's put in that shift. It's not a good skill, easy skill to master at all. Ball comes in this time by Australia. This time McDermott goes really quickly, doesn't even wait for it to get to the back. Manages to feed his back line as they power away down the left-hand side of the field. Approaching the Georgian 22, McDermott is there.
Australia,
this is slow ball here, as we just hear the referee's mic just getting a few wallops there. Ball comes back and away. Offside. They've lost a couple of metres here, Georgia, and they've gone offside in the process, which will frustrate them as well. But it's penalty advantage to the Georgians. McDermott to try and decide which is the best way to travel. Pops off the ball in the end to Karevi.
Still advantage 9.
Passed out towards the far side on this occasion. They like keeping it quite tight there down that left-hand channel. As we just, you might have a little bit of interference at the moment on your line, but it's gone quickly here. McDermott's all on his own though. He needs a little bit of support to arrive, but no. Now this could be interesting at what our referee Luke Pearce is going to do here. We are just going to play with a few things, just to check and see what is causing that interference.
Yeah.
So
quick look, please.
Hopefully that's calmed down just a little bit there. So we're just going to watch a replay on the big screens for a little instant after McDermott went flying forward. It's Australia 18, Georgia 3 here as we approach the halfway mark. All eyes at the moment on Vasyl Lobzahansa, the Georgian scrum half. So it was McDermott who flew away. Lobzahansa goes for a high tackle. It's what we call more of a seatbelt tackle, but he does get higher as McDermott goes down to the ground. It's also whether he was 10 metres away from McDermott took his run as well. I'm thinking a yellow card or a penalty at the moment. Your thoughts, Paul Grayson?
Yeah, contact around the shoulder and then slid over the top. The only thing is whether it was cynical because he hasn't made enough metres, but he was running back, he was chasing him back towards his own try line. The Australian scrum half had made 5 metres, penalty only, correct decision.
Okay, so Australia seem pretty happy with that as it stands, and they're going to kick their penalty. I think the jeers are going round because I think the crowd actually wanted to see more than that, but such is their will if they desire. So it would be another penalty opportunity then for Ben Donaldson to step up. And interesting again what Eddie Jones has done here. We spoke a lot in the match last night about the influence of how the All Blacks play in the end with Richie Mwanga at 10, and then you have Beauden Barrett at 15, the influence of Thomas Ramos at 15, and then you've got added to that having Jalibert at 10. Do you think this Donaldson-Gordon axis between 10 and 15 is becoming the trend in rugby at the moment?
Yeah, it certainly is. Fullbacks of that. There's a lot of fullbacks who start out life, quick fullbacks who start out life as fly halves and then migrate back because they're not always best suited. A little bit like Beauden Barrett. Beauden Barrett was so fast that he almost rewrote the rule book for fly halves, but his default setting was always to run, which influenced his decision making at times. Much more comfortable at fullback, being an extra set of eyes. So it is a pattern in the game. Even England have cottoned onto it lately with the suspicions that Marcus Smith might play a little bit at 15.
Yeah, it's whether England have cottoned onto that too late and how that's actually going to work out. Of course, that match between England and Argentina is at 8 o'clock this evening in the port town of Marseille. I've seen some lovely pictures coming there from our correspondent Chris Jones and former England wing Chris Ashton today. Whilst we were sent to the Frog and Roast Beef in central Paris, they were sent to the beach to do all their talking. Do you think that's a fair deal?
Well, I suppose those two. It's an evening kick-off. We'll be feet up by then.
True, that is true.
And they'll be going to work, so
yeah,
we can enjoy it with
yeah.
half a shanty, I suppose.
Okay, all right then. Right, it's Australia 21, Georgia 3. As we are trying to figure out where the mic disturbance is coming from. If you can hear that coming through your ears at the moment, I think it's actually going to be your microphone cable, Paul Grayson. So we are just going to get that one changed. So apologies to everyone. You have to listen to me chat for a little bit as we sort that one out. So Australia 21, Georgia 3. And as we say that, it's the Wallabies who hack the ball down the field. They've got a line out on the far side, inside of the Georgian half. And it's between the 10 and the 22. We've got you a new cable, Paul Grayson. Hope you quite like that one as ball comes back then to Carter Gordon, who puts the high ball up into the air. It's going to come down inside of the Georgian 22, and nobody is on it at all. They missed the ball when it came down, then they let it bounce, and it's come up in the arms in the end of Tate McDermott, who they're trying to shove into touch on this near side. Donaldson's then going to send it back and across. Carter Gordon then with another cross-field kick, a little bit to nothing, but it's a bouncing ball again that the Georgians have got to deal with. They're going to have to put that down for a goal line dropout. And Georgia just so stuck at the moment. It's a little bit frustrating to watch, I have to say, and we've had some big blowouts today already in this World Cup. Italy 52, Namibia 8. I mean, I'll be honest, Namibia looked like they didn't want to be there after 60 minutes, such was the heat and the conditions they were playing in. And then Ireland 82, Romania 8. It's the kind of thing that you really want to see, the support coming for these tier 2 nations to make these poor matches occasionally slightly better spectacles, as we see the head go down of Richie Arnold taking the ball into contact, manages to come back and away. McWright on the ball now. Wonderful support line coming in by Donaldson. He needed someone on his shoulder as well, though, to finish the job off. Still Australian ball. Tupou there manages to get the ball away. This time it's Karevi who crashes down to the ground. Spun out this time, Tupou once again. He's got popped off ball. This time he manages to give that one to Skelton. Gathered this time by McDermott. Gives it straight to a Georgian player. There was no offside line there because there wasn't a ruck, so he was perfectly within his rights to stand there. As the high ball goes up this time by Lobzahansa and forces the Wallabies to go back. And chasing that one was Tabasadze. Donaldson gathers, sends it back down into the Georgian 22. I feel like I've said down into Georgian 22 a lot, but that is where the ball is. It's all I can say is they have a run down this near side. This is better from Georgia, more exciting back inside. It's the fly half, McCarver, who's got it. There's nobody with him. Eventually he manages to throw the ball away. Gogadze is there, the big number 8 wearing his purple scrum cap. Finally, the Georgians are on the attack, and they're in the attack inside of the Wallaby 22, but there is a Wallaby player down injured in a really difficult position. At the moment, Luke Pearce, he is going to stop play, and I'm so glad he has. We've got a player who needs help down on the ground. They're just going to, I think it might be Tate McDermott, who's down on the ground at the moment, who's receiving a little bit of treatment, and he got a big knee to the head. He got himself on the wrong side, as we say, and he's been knocked straight out. And wonderful refereeing by Luke Pearce there. The ruck was right close to where McDermott had gone down to the ground. He's going to be taken off. I don't think there's any question about this in rugby anymore, about when something like this happens. McDermott is receiving treatment, and I can see warming up. Nick White is getting ready to come on.
Who's a capable replacement, so that Tate McDermott's okay. It was a fantastic counter-attack by Mabadze. Matt Carver, the left wing and fly half of Georgia, found some space, and then a strong carry. He went to go low. McDermott caught his head. Difficult there, because technically really he's tackling from out to in, so it is the right shoulder. He went very, very low. Just a rugby incident, but it was a fair old crack to the side of his noggin.
We should say his legs are moving around. He's not still out unconscious at all, but he is still receiving medical treatment. Nick White is already onto the field of play, so there's no question here that Tate McDermott isn't going off the field. But that was a wonderful passage of play we just saw by Georgia. Really well worked down this near side. Luca McCarver, their fly half, he was heavily involved in that move as well. Support eventually arrived in the form of Gogadze. Unfortunately, the flow had to be stopped, but finally a purple patch.
Yeah, and they're not short of adventure, and it was good decision making because the opportunity was on. McCarver first, and then to Mabadze, who put the afterburners on to round Will Skelton, gave it back to his fly half by the touchline, and it was a pop off the floor to the number 8, who'd done well actually to stay in support, because it was a fully 50-metre break by those two players, and he just carried the ball as hard as he could straight into the centre of the Australia defence, where he picked on the smallest man, McDermott, who bravely put himself in, but paid the price as we see him get back to his feet and be led off the field. Let's hope everything's okay. He looks in reasonable order, if a little bit shaken up. Nick White is on in his replace as the replacement number 9.
Yeah, really good to see Tate McDermott walk off the field. What is slightly unfortunate is we haven't got to see a bit more of the McDermott-Gordon axis developing there. The pair of them actually have quite an interesting backstory, because they went to the same school. Carter Gordon's a little bit younger, and it was actually McDermott's younger brother who was playing with Gordon. So he sort of says, I remember growing up, and sort of they were the young ones, they were the annoying ones who were always in the way, but they've always been a part of each other's childhoods for quite a little while. So it's a nice story.
It is a nice story, and actually, as we were talking about Georgia and the Tier 2 nations getting exposure to better teams, nothing like growing up with an older sibling to get you up to speed.
Well, you've produced 3 rugby players. What were they all like in the Garden? James, my eldest, he's 4 years older than Joel and Ethan, who are identical twins, so he had 2 to push around for a few years. At what age did the tectonic plates start moving in the wrong direction for him?
Suffice to say, he's not doing it anymore.
Australia 21, Georgia 3, 34 minutes on the clock. We are going to restart then. It's going to be an Australian scrum, because the ball was actually knocked on in the end, and Nick White has the ball under his arm as he comes onto the field. He's going to play out this last 5 minutes of this opening first half. Australia have enjoyed more of the territory, 69% compared to Georgia's 31%. And I have to say, something that we make a lot of Australian fans really happy is when I tell you the penalty count. They've only given away 1 penalty, which discipline has been a problem for them.
Yeah, absolutely it has. I mean, they're 58% possession, and the 42% that Georgia have had has been pretty much entirely in their own half, so they've not been under masses of pressure And obviously when you're under stress and defending for long periods of time, then that's when your decision making can occasionally be tested, and Australia have been pretty bad at that. So not the sternest examination, but nevertheless the number is the number.
Well, Vasil Lobzahansa has just given away a penalty after he was chasing the ball round the back as it wasn't quite out of the scrum and jumped on it before it was out. So he's given away the penalty, and he's given away a few now for Georgia. He's one of the more experienced players on the field, winning his 79th cap. That's exactly the thing you don't want your senior players to be doing. No,
and he's just gambled. He's seen Rob Valentini, the Australian number 8, holding the ball at his feet, gambled that he's lost his bind on his second rows and the referee will let him have a crack, but too soon and spotted by Luke Pearce.
It was a lovely line out by Australia, straight to the back, tapped down to Nick White, ready to go again. Now Angus Bell back on the ball, the Waratahs loose head. He actually made his debut at 20 years old. He's the son of the former Wallaby Mark Bell, so this sort of stuff, it runs in his blood as the ball goes high into the Paris sky once more. As an aerial challenge that no one can actually take the ball, and Lobzahansa manages to pass it away towards his fullback Nini Ashvili. He sends it high back. Donaldson is waiting just outside of the Wallabies 22 to receive. He puts more air on top of that ball for it to sail back down towards the throat of the Georgians once again. Running into heavy traffic this time is McCarver. Only his 11th cap today for the 22-year-old, playing fly half for the Georgians. High one this time, box kick away cleanly by Lobzahansa. And a beautiful take here. This is what we wanted to see in Koroibete, but he has been absolutely walloped. And I think the Georgians are a little bit wise to him running that diagonal line now and how he's going to go. This time comes through Tom Hooper. A lot of people saying that he's the kind of player that reminds them all a little bit of Dean Mumm, if you can go back that far. He was a lock, of course, but at slightly different positions. But some of the Australian press have given them comparisons as the ball does go out of play, then back inside of the Georgian 22. And body language says an awful lot. The Georgians are walking around, hands on hips, heads down, trying to take on oxygen. I have to say, the Australians still look quite pumped. They're up for this. Yeah,
they do. That was a strong carry again from Koroibete, but in fairness to Abaladze and Papidze, the two props, they were the ones who put the hit in on him, which is why it was so formidable. It's a gutsy effort from the front rows with 2 or 3 minutes till half time.
Well, Australia and Georgia, they have actually met previously at a Rugby World Cup. That was actually in 2019. It's their only former meeting, and it was Australia who came away winners that day, 27 points to 8. So the score at the moment here at the Stade France is Australia 21, Georgia 3. I've already got a feeling that scoreline is going to increase somewhat in the second half. Just got a feeling with this heat and what we're playing in and how we're dealing with it as the ball just comes away to the Australians off the line out that was on the halfway. Rob Valentini, he flies forward up into the Georgian faces. Nick White was trying to get quick distribution, but over the top there by Australia. We discussed discipline. Maybe I'm starting to jinx them as they give away a couple of penalties.
Yeah, there's another line out straight over the back of the line out from hooker to 12. As Georgia go quick and don't make touch.
No, and that'll frustrate them. That would have been really nice right down in the corner. They gambled, it hasn't paid off, and it's sent back down the near side. It's not a great clearance kick, I have to say, by Nwanga Nitawazi, so it's going to end up being a Georgian line-out. This might be the last phase of play. Was it closing in the last 30 seconds before the clock goes red for half-time? So the big bearded man that is none other than Mamu Kashvili, he steps up, big grey beard, gets his hands and his mitts on the ball to get this one going again for the Georgians. Stolen by Australia. What a steal as well. Take a bow there, Richie Arnold. Wonderful slap down. He's just so tall. The Georgians just don't have the height to compete with it. Gathered out on the left wing as it's kicked down the field by Mobadze. Georgians are trying to compete with the Australians in all areas of the pitch, and that's another mistake. Carter Gordon had the ball, he hadn't landed, and Mabadze came up into his face. I mean, simple. As Nick White is pulled back for trying to take it quickly. The clock is into the red now.
Number 11 is contact in the air, and then he gave me a little bit of back chat as well.
There you go, clear and concise from Luke Pearce. Mabadze, poor challenge in the air, but not dangerous, just a penalty. A very tired, hot Georgian frustrated, let his mouth run away with it. Referee penalises him with an extra 10 metres, gives Australia a chance to smash that into the 22. That's a good kick from Donaldson. They'll have one last attack, line out 18 metres out.
Yeah, Australia got a couple of really early tries, one on 2 minutes by Pataya, 9 minutes then by Nwanga Tawazi, but they're looking for a bonus point. Could be so important in this pool. It's so tight with Australia, Wales, Fiji, Georgia and Portugal, and we thought the way they were going, like quite a train when we started off, they might have wrapped up that bonus point before half-time. That's not going to be, as eventually Amor collapses down to the floor. White manages to gather. Karevi, he pumps the legs and works his way towards the Georgian line. He's about 15 metres short at the moment. White with the distribution. McDermott is off the field after taking a hit to the head. Comes back now this time to Arnold, who's been so significant for the Wallabies at the line-out. Skelton now the captain. He's taking on duties as they're working through the phases. We're over a minute and a half now into extra time in the first half. A little bit of a run band there by Nwanga Tawazi. He would like another try, but there's not a lot of space at the moment in this Georgian defensive line, and the Wallabies at the moment, they're not really stretching them. They're really condensed, and finally they start flooding down this near side channel. Go forward this time by Karevi.
No!
And still the Wallabies, they're really tight at the moment. Now I think there's going to be a card here.
We had the warning for multiple offsides. Number 11 is now offside again, persistent infringing.
Okay, so the yellow card then is for Miriam Mobadze. Georgia down to 14, and that's how they start the second half.
We'd just given the penalty away for the challenge in the air. The referee had told one of the Georgian players to leave that ball alone. It was in the ruck. Australia's attack really is narrow. It's poorly structured. It's not testing them at all. Mabadze's just hot and bothered and decided that forget the rules, I'm going to go for it. It's cost his team.
Oh, the ball is lost by Australia in their maul as well, so that's really poor execution by the Australians as we finish the half with Australia 21, Georgia 3. And yeah, you've said a lot there actually in those last few moments there of that match as we just wrap this up, Paul Grayson, about as much as Australia are leading this, they are not playing well.
No, they're not, and they're those people who've watched England over the last couple of seasons, two phases then put the ball in the air. That is what we're seeing from Australia here. Yes, it's paying off against Georgia because they can't really get out of their own half, but it's a very limited game plan, and then when they're in possession they lose their shape within a phase or two within 30 metres of the Georgian line. They're not posing any great threats. Koroy Betty, probably the most exciting of their players, comes in counter-attack when he decides to go off script and just do what he wants. So no great shakes from Australia. Georgia will be disappointed that the scoreline is as it is.
Well, Pool C is underway then, halfway in this match. It is Australia 21, Georgia 3. Earlier today, Italy 52, Namibia 8, Ireland 82, Romania 8, but the last match of the day, it's a big one down in Marseille. It will be England against Argentina, and that is where we are heading right now to catch up with rugby correspondent Chris Jones.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Back with you and Paul shortly for the second half, with Australia comfortably leading by 21 points to 3. Lelos have anything in the tank in the second half, but welcome to this magnificent Stade Velodrome here on the southern coast of France in Marseille. 2 hours and 7 minutes precisely before England face their date with destiny against Argentina. Beautiful sunny day here, a little bit cooler than you guys in Paris. The sea breeze just helping with the sweltering heat, but it is going to be some atmosphere as the fans flock from the old port slightly inland to us here at the Stade Velodrome. Absolutely delighted to have the former Puma scrum half, 84 caps and all, Martin Landasho. Landasho, you happy?
Yeah.
I was working out how to quite get that kind of Argentinian
that was fine.
flair
on
your name. Fantastic to have you with us, Martin.
Thanks for the
Isn't
invitation.
this a brilliant setting for the game?
Oh, it is. It is. I've been walking through the streets here, and it's lots of Argentinians, English people already excited outside the stadium, so I think it's going to be a great night.
Sonia McLaughlin, who's presenting our coverage, we were talking earlier just about how beautiful that Argentinian shirt is. That light blue on white, you just can't help just to stir the emotions.
Oh, I love it. I got those at home. Sometimes I don't change it. Sometimes when I finish the game, I prefer to keep it because it's so lovely. So yeah, one of the best jerseys for me in the world.
Before we preview this huge game, you won 84 caps for the Pumas. Is there one game that sticks out? Maybe it's been at a Rugby World Cup that you think, yeah, that's the one I want to replay time and time again.
Oh yeah, for sure. I still remember when we played a semi-final in the World Cup 2015. We lost Australia in Twickenham. So if I could change that, I would go back there and play it again, of course.
But you'd love to play again the quarter-final the week before against Ireland. How good was that?
Oh, that was amazing. We were talking before that. I remember we said Ireland are a great team. They've been winning the Six Nations, and we said, okay, we need to do something different. We just played, it didn't kick that much, so it was a great game for us.
So that brings us on to tonight, and in terms of the tactics for these two teams, do you think that either team will come with that kind of attitude, or do they think they both feel that if they keep it tight, keep it controlled, they can grind the other one down?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tight game, a lot of kicking, unfortunately, but it's both teams come with a bit of a pressure, maybe England has a bit more pressure, so I think it will kick the ball a lot.
So you mentioned the pressure that is on England. Are you sensing that from your position that, God, there's a lot of England supporters who feel it's time for this team to deliver?
Yeah, I think it is, and it's good for Argentina. Hope the players don't take this as granted and they relax. But I'm not playing, so I can say it. But I believe, yes, England fans, England press, England media, they're waiting for something, and England is not delivering that. So I think they will have a bit of a pressure on that. We have to be honest. I hope it doesn't come today, because I'm Argentinian, but I think they have a bit of a pressure there.
So the pressure we feel is on England just because of their form and because, if they lose tonight, how that pressure will increase. So what about the mentality for Argentina? In the past, traditionally, Argentina against a team like England have been the underdogs, and often when Argentina have played teams like South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, they've been the underdogs. But such has been the improvement in Argentina over the last maybe 15 years, coupled with England where they are. How will the Pumas approach, Martin, being potentially the favourites for tonight?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think they won't believe that. They know England. It's England. It's a World Cup. It's just 80 minutes. It does count for me. It does count what you did before, but I believe Argentina won't believe that. They know that England is. We never beaten England in a World Cup, so that's something big. Argentina won't take this light for sure, so they will respect England.
Yeah, as you say, not beaten England at the World Cup. 3 times the teams have met: 1995, 2011 and 2019, each time England winning. But the last time the two teams met was at Twickenham in November. Argentina 30, England 29. 13 of the starting 15, Martin, are back. There is such a consistency in selection for the Pumas, which England just don't have. Only 5 players started that game for them, and it wasn't so long ago.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good... I didn't knew that, but I think Argentina has been doing great on that with the new coaching. Players have confidence, and they're earning their spot, and that's why it's so competitive there. I've been speaking a lot with the players, and they know there's a big competition there, and that's why they're repeating the team, because they're doing well.
Just a quick last word on Argentina, Martin, before we bring Chris Ashton in. Who for you are key men tonight in this Argentinian lineup?
I think Pablo Matera. I think he's a thermometer of the team. If he's high, he's aggressive, he's physical, the team goes behind him. So I will select him. Yeah,
Matera, who was so influential for Argentina at that 2015 World Cup, which you played in, Martin, and you did so well to get to the semi-finals. Chris Ashton in the house.
Hello.
If we play the Chris Ashton Degrees of Separation game, which is the game where you have played with every single rugby player ever, because you've been to so many clubs. Of course, you play. I said, have you
That's
played?
That's why I did it.
Yeah, exactly. So we could have a great game later on. I said, have you played with Martin? Of course, you played with Martin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have. Harlequins. Yep. It wasn't the best time that Harlequins have ever had. No. We'll agree on that.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was an experience, and that's why I did. Look, just to help a broadcasting career, Jose, it was the sacrifices that I made.
You moved around the whole time just to get a wide array of experiences. Right, come on, Ashley, stepping in the stadium. We know you have history with the Velodrome, broke the top 14 try scoring record here, put it on a plate by Mar Nonu. Coming in here with 2 hours to go, it feels very real, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's just great to be here, isn't it? Great to be in the stadium, especially so early, and just feel the place empty. I have found myself in a little bit of a playing mode today. Like, just you save energy, you conserve yourself, because the main event is late at night, which is so unusual for players. You're in the mid-afternoon. You've got a pretty structured day, so to have it at 9 p.m. is a shock to the system almost. You've got to go slower throughout the day to conserve your energy, to be able to come out the blocks at 9 o'clock. It's an unusual thing. It'd be an unusual thing for the England squad. I mean, the Argentina boys, you live your life late at night. You only eat dinner at 9, 10 o'clock.
True. Yep.
So they're used to it. The Argie boys are used to it. But English, I mean, we're in bed by 9, 10 o'clock.
Yeah, so depressing.
And actually, when it comes, we spoke there with Martin about the psychology for the Argentinians going into this game, potentially as favourites, even though they won't see it like that. What's England's mentality going into this?
I think the biggest threat that Argentina have is they have run the world's best teams so close recently. Could have easily won games against Australia. They've beaten Australia. They could have won against South Africa. They could have won against New Zealand. Now, we haven't seen them for 5 weeks purposely because of Cheika's, the way he's approached. They've been eerily silent going into this game. We have to hope. I'm going into this game with hope is that we get some luck early on, that we find some spark, either through Manu making a break and getting us momentum when we get a try, Johnny May on the outside. We need something early doors just to spark some life to us and go, here, we're in this, we're in it early, we're in it quickly, and that will breed confidence into the experience that we haven't seen the best of over the past few weeks.
You mentioned the experience, and there's no doubt there are experienced individuals, but whereas we touched upon the consistency in selection and the combinations, the whole Argentina pack to a man started the game against England in November. 13 of the 15, England have 5. They've just got no consistent combinations. You've played for so many games for so many clubs. When you've got a 12 and 13 who have barely played, a 9 and 10 who have barely played, a back 3 who have barely played, that has to count for something.
It doesn't work. It does not work. In my experience anyway of a player, it takes time. You have to learn how people operate, how they move around the pitch, especially in a back 3. You have to find your place in the team, and you're only going to get that by playing. You can have as many training sessions as you want. It's not the same as playing games. People are mentally in a different place, and they operate differently to what they do as what a coach is setting up a drill and you're training. You have to be in the game, in the arena, learning how each other operate and how to find best place in the team. Like you just said, we haven't got that combinations. We haven't got it, especially in the back line. So I think we're hoping for Manu up the guts, aren't we?
and does that give you confidence? There do seem, especially in the forward pack, to be quite a few settled combinations here for Argentina.
No, it does. And I think Michael Cheika has spoken about this a lot. 9 and 10, they've been playing 2 years already together, most of the games. So that's key. I think Argentina has done a good job. But when the game starts, you never know. You never know.
I want to ask you about Julio Montoya.
Tell me, ask me.
How is he regarded in Argentina? How is he looked upon? Because I was at Leicester with him. I have a lot of respect for the man. Respect is a big part of him and who he is, how he operates. But we don't see that in England. We don't see how Argentina approach the team, and especially their captain.
No, same thing. I think he's really respected. I think he's done his first 3 or 4 years in the national team. He was behind Creevy, and he was maybe the best at training, the best when he came in. So he won that spot as a captain. I think he's a great captain. I think he has done so much, and maybe suffering from being in the second position for a couple of years and suddenly being there. He's so humble from that. So everyone respects him in Argentina.
Because Creevy was obviously well respected too. So is there any overlap between the two of them?
Not at all.
No?
Not at all. Honestly, I wouldn't tell you because you're English, but but I would be honest. No. Really, it's
mutual.
Much mutual.
Yeah, it's amazing. England have got a great hooker of their own in Jamie George, but their backup hooker has 3 caps, and on the bench for Argentina is Creevy with 100, you know, and then you've got Montoya who wins his 90th today. So there is a huge amount of experience. It's been an incredible dynasty for Argentina in that hooker position. And just final one to you, Martin. There are 10 of this 23 who play rugby in England for Argentina. Now, that is
Should I say thank you?
I think there is something in it, in the fact that the Jaguares were disbanded, so players needed to look all over the place. But how good has it been for Argentina players?
No, it's if I could pick, I would play in Argentina. Nothing it's better for us to play at home. But I think France and England have helped a lot on our development, on our increasing of our level for the national team. But if I could pick, I would be back in Super Rugby with an Argentine franchise.
For sure. Well, it's great to have you on the team, Martin. Ashi on commentary as well. Great to have you with us here in Marseille. Matt Dawson, the World Cup winning scrum half in 2003, also on 5 Live in just under 2 hours' time. It is going to be some occasion here at the Velodrome in Marseille. No doubt some occasion in Stade Denis at the Stade de France. Australia 21, Georgia 3 at half-time. Back to you, Sarah and Paul.
Thanks ever so much, Chris. Yes, well, it's temperature's starting to come down slightly here in Paris, which is very welcome for those of us commentating. But I have to say, there's a few still over in the far side of the field at the moment at the Stade de France that still be in that blaring heat. I really hope they brought their sun cream with you. We're just waiting for Georgia to make their way out of the tunnel at the moment. Australia still not appeared from the changing room just yet. Hasn't been the most... I don't want to be rude about the game because it's still a compelling game, but not always for the right reasons, Paul Grayson. Is that fair?
There's no lack of effort from both teams. Georgia probably disappointed in the way that they conceded their points, and then they lost their discipline at the end of that half, giving away a string of penalties. That's cost them one player into the bin. Mobadze, the left winger, he actually had a decent half, made a couple of breaks, a couple of challenges in the air. Australia will now get 10 minutes against 14 men. From an Australian point of view, very limited game plan. Yes, it's working, but they're hardly working through the gears at the moment. It's a little bit slow, ball in hand to say the least. Nevertheless, if they're going to make hay against 14 men, they need to get their hands on the ball, play with a little bit more width, a little bit more ambition, because they've certainly got the strike runners right across their back line. They just need the opportunity and permission.
Well, at the moment, the Georgians are having to restart this second half with just 14 in the bin. As Paul Grayson just says that it's Mobadze who is in the bin. He's a winger, so there's not going to have to be any too much chopping and changing there. I have also seen that they've made a change there in Beka Gigashvili of Toulon. He is on tight head. So that means Nodor Charashvili, he is gone off the field as Nick White gathers the ball for Australia, who are playing from right to left in this second half, of course wearing their green and gold. And then Georgia, they gather the ball on the left-hand side of the field, playing in their white with the red numbers. So gathered this time by Carter Gordon, wearing his white and yellow boots as he just shoves that one down the field. Stopped with the feet in the end by Luka Makava. The Black Lion player uses his right boot to send it back. Hasn't been too much of a good time aerially for the Georgians in the first half, and it feels a little bit like that already as Ben Donaldson sends the ball back down the throat into the Georgian 22. And this time the Georgians, they're realising they might have to put it out of play a little bit more, but it's still giving the Wallabies the ball that they want, albeit back inside of their own half by about 5 or 6 metres, their lineup.
Yeah, that's the coming end to it. Ninyashvili had the opportunity because he caught the ball inside his 22 to go straight off the field. He's made a decent fist of it. This will play from a set piece now, maybe get some shape into the game.
Well, Georgia just slightly got a mitt to that ball as it was dropped down at the line out, so we're playing a little bit of penalty advantage to Australia. As you heard there, it's over. Our referee today is Luke Pisman. Oh, this could be a 50-22. Has it been stopped by Georgia? They've taken the ball inside of their own goal area and they're running away with it. Oh, this is nice from Georgia. They know their rugby, of course they do. As the ball comes back, that could have been all kinds of precarious situations they put themselves in. The Wallabies have it, but they're back inside of their own half. Brilliant play there. I think it was Aka Tabasadze who managed to keep that one in, and the ball eventually comes back in the end to their fly half, Makava. And Donaldson can't quite take it. No knock on there by Australia inside of their 22 as it comes out of play on this near side, and it's going to be a Georgian line out on the halfway line.
Absolutely sensational piece of skill. The Georgian player diving full length. It's like a boundary save in T20 cricket. He's over the line, flicks the ball back inside, has the wherewithal then to get back on his feet and join in a counter-attack. Superb stuff from the Georgian back three.
So Mamukashvili, the hooker, is ready to go. Now, they've had a few issues at the line out. the Georgians, mainly because they haven't dealt very well with Richie Arnold and Will Skelton, but they do eventually manage to get away with the ball. Nice run there as the forwards crash it over the halfway line. Nice popped off ball. There was someone there to take it as well. They are trying stuff here, the Georgians. They might be trailing 21 points to 3 with 42 minutes on the clock, playing with 14 as the ball is turned over by Australia. Carter Gordon hacks it down, and that's a terrible kick there for Carter Gordon. It's going to go out of play inside of the Georgian try area. He's just put too much gas on it.
Now that's a prime example of a team trapped in a game plan. Will Skelton fights his way through the middle of the ruck, clean turnover, rips the ball, pops it over the top. Australia got 4, maybe 5 on 2.5 Georgian defenders with a winger outside, a tired forward, not one thought about moving the ball through the hands. As soon as it got to Carter Gordon, smashed it down in the corner, kicked it dead. Not his fault. That's been drilled into them that they want to put the ball behind the Georgians, no other messages. And that freedom to express yourself or read the situation there as a rugby player.
Okay.
If you take that away, the game just becomes a boring jigsaw. Just a grey jigsaw. Just put the piece in. That's all we're going to do. No attacking intent. And that's not. I don't blame the players for that. That's the message that they're getting given.
Controlled frustration there by 2003 World Cup winner Paul Grayson, who's here with us on 5 Live Sports Extra. Of course, the person at the top of the tree for Australia is, of course, Eddie Jones, who's trying to change Australian fortunes, but since he has come in, they have not won a game yet so far this year. They're likely to win this one against Georgia with the scoreline as it is, but haven't been too impressed with the style of rugby so far. You did say at the start of that, I won't call it a rant, but debate, you said trapped in a game plan. I think it sounds like the next Netflix series that I want to watch, Trapped in a Game Plan.
Yeah, that's good. Keep it quiet.
Okay, all right, we'll keep it to ourselves. Okay. Or maybe a song by Rihanna or something.
But it's just like last night we talked about France's instinct as a group to seize the moment, because everyone sees the same picture, same opportunity. Opposite for Australia.
Well, the Georgians have managed to get a line out inside of the Australian 22. Here they come. Remember, they're down to 14 at the moment as Sharakadze, the Black Lion centre, goes forward. He's their captain.
Advantage.
10 metres to go, not rolling away by Australia.
Advantage, Georgia.
And Georgia are being told to use it. They do have the penalty. They've been pushed back a couple of metres, so that's good defence by the Wallabies. They're trying to make space. They've not got enough numbers here, Georgia, to try and run this one, so they're going to come back for the penalty. Big decision of what they do here, because it's pretty pointless them kicking up goal at the moment. They need tries.
Yeah, absolutely. The penalty's 20 metres in from the left-hand touchline, 10 metres from the goal line. Scrum's an option. Kick to the corner, line-out's an option. See if they can get a drive going, or they can just tap, start hammering away at the line.
Well, the crowd like this decision as Makaba, he puts the ball into the corner. It's going to be a Georgian line out 5 metres away from the Wallaby line. Now, in other circumstances, maybe they might have tried to wind down the clock because they've only got 14 on the field, but with the scoreline as it is, as we said, it's just pretty pointless stuff. So, big moment then for Georgia. Can they get their first try in this Rugby World Cup? They're 5 metres out from the line. That's a big pushback by Australia, and the Georgians are using every little bit of ounce of energy they have to try and push that backwards. The ball is in the arms at the moment of Mamukashvili. They've got penalty advantage as well, the Georgians. So Australia, we've talked about good discipline from them so far. They could be in trouble if this kind of play carries on. They're trying to dig out the ball through Lobsahansa. He pops it off this time to Absaladze, the big prop. He goes down to the floor, still 5 metres left to travel. The captain has it in the form of Sharakadze. A few more phases to come. Georgian advantage up their sleeve. The Wallaby line is holding for now. Lobsahansa passes it out wide. It's going to go over the top. Is this going to be a Georgian try? Down in the corner it goes. It's Luka Ivanishvili who goes down. Georgia get their try, and that is deserved.
Absolutely fantastic play from Georgia. Strong running into the heart of the midfield. Captain Merab Sharakadze takes 3 or 4 defenders with him. Then they change direction. Reminiscent of Jalibert last night. This time Luka Makaba, the fly half, went to the line, straightened up. Australia bent out of shape for no apparent reason in defence. Then he floated a brilliant ball over the top to his open side flanker. Rode the tackler, the covering Carter Gordon dotted the ball down just inside the corner flag. Fantastic score.
And Georgia have done that with 14 on the field. That's the kind of play that they can string together. 47 minutes on the clock. They've still got a few more minutes of that sin bin still to go, so they can go back up to a full complement of 15. But a really tricky conversion here coming in. It's right on the far side. It's a 45-metre angle that McCarver's got to try and turn this one in on. Shot clock starting to make its way down, now into its early 20s. Just hands resting calmly on his thighs as he takes his run up. Big thump of the boot. You heard that being whacked. Not to be, though. So it is Australia 21, Georgia 8, and the Georgians still down to 14 but scoring tries.
Yeah, it's a fantastic ball over the top. He straightened into the traffic because Australia had come up in ones and twos. Not certain of whether they were all going together or all sitting off. Carter Gordon got caught looking in. Brilliant pass over the top, 15 metres, right on the money. The open side did the rest.
Australia 21, Georgia 8 as the ball is restarted. You just feel that the Georgians, they've got a little bit more about them all of a sudden. The confidence is starting to flood back into them. Whatever they said at half-time is clearly working, as the Wallabies are just warned there. Remember, the Wallabies have given away a few penalties in the opening passages of this second half. It's been a real problem for them this season, their discipline. And we thought they'd done really well, despite perhaps not the most scintillating rugby, that they'd actually sorted that out in this game. But it's starting to creep back in as the ball goes out wide. It did look forward, though. It will be a Georgian scrum inside of their own half on the 10-metre.
Better, though, from Australia, moving the ball from left to right. Quickly through 2 or 3 pairs of hands once they won that box kick. Yeah, just forward. Nice little attempted flick pass.
Well, they're just going to wait to make their way up again, and I'm just watching. They are going to return to full complement of 15 players now. A few changes as well. Australia taking Angus Bell off the field. They're bringing on Blake Shoup in his place. As Angus Bell slowly makes way. He's had some good runs there, Angus Bell. 52 metres made, which I always think for a loose head prop, that's pretty impressive.
He's got good feet and good acceleration. Very good rugby player, and he does his nuts and bolts in the set piece too. He's definitely an asset on the left-hand side of the front row. Yeah,
he's actually carried more than any of the forwards, which is probably the reason why he's actually been brought off the field, because he might have just emptied the tank. So Georgia, 15 men on the field. Scrum on the far side. They're inside of their own half as Lobsahans waits with the ball, trying to get this one back in. Now the Wallaby scrum has had 100% success so far this year. That's been on their own ball. And World Cup's gone by. It's the scrum that we've talked about with Georgia. But as we said, that there are just a little bit more than that these days. It's a little bit lazy to say that that is all that they're about, as the ball does come back in the Georgian direction. Kick down the field to Donaldson. He takes it just with a little jump, and 2 of the Georgians managed to bring him down to the ground. Wallaby ball inside of their own half, between the halfway line and the 10-metre. Nick White not interested at all in quick ball whatsoever, as the ball goes down onto the floor there by the Australians, but no. The warning there. I think it was Fraser McWright who's been told off by Luke Pearce for coming in from the side.
Yeah, but like you say, everything done at almost a snail's pace by Australia. They know they want to put the box kick up, in no hurry to do it. Just a technical error, a little lack of discipline from the Australians.
It was actually Shoup who came in at the side. It wasn't McWright. I just saw the 7. It's got a 1 in front of it as well. So you can tell by the energy inside of the Stade de France at the moment that they are behind the Georgians. There are a lot of gold jerseys here. Anyone who thinks that rugby supporters in Australia haven't travelled, they really have. But I think the crowd are quite enjoying this comeback by the underdog slightly.
Absolutely. And that's what sport's all about, isn't it? When you've got the big team against the little team, you can just sniff at 21-8. The crowd would be quite happy with another Georgian score.
Yeah. Time on. Eddie Jones has actually only won as a head coach at the Stade de France once. That was when he was with England when they won the Grand Slam back in 2016. I don't know if he'll be nervous right now. He's got a lot of bad memories in this stadium as the ball comes away. It's a nice line out by the Georgians, and this is a maul that's moving, and they're through more bodies at it as well. They've brought onto the field Gala Aprasidze to play scrum half. So Aprasidze is at the back. It's a bit of a mess on the floor, but it was taken in by the maul. It went down to ground, and it's going to restart then with a Wallaby scrum.
Relax. Number 5 is through the middle. Georgia went to floor.
Relax, says our referee Luke Pearce. Can't relax, this is the World Cup.
On his knees there, Will Skelton. Georgia had set a decent maul. They'd actually managed to shear off past 3 Australian defenders who were spat out the side. And then Will Skelton fought his way through the middle legitimately, at which point fearing they were going to lose the ball. The Georgians took it to ground, didn't manage to get the ball free, so it gets turned over. Frustrating law for me, that one, because it was positive action by them. It was good defence by Skelton. The ball could quite easily have been played.
I'm not quite seeing that, but
as it is, once it collapses and gets stuck, the ball gets turned over to the defensive team.
Here's a question. As a rugby player, I appreciate you weren't in too many mauls. I give you that, Paul Grayson. But what is more scary, to have like a limb stuck with a moving maul, or to be stuck at the bottom of a ruck when everything's happening on top of you?
Or any situation which you're not in control of in a rugby game can be pretty scary. You'd be amazed how aware the forwards are in those areas. If somebody gets compromised, there is kind of a duty of care. No one's out there to hurt anybody beyond the legality of the game, but it is a scary place if you think about how many kilograms are on the move and the forces that are at play. Yeah, it's a place to avoid.
Well, you're not missing any rugby because the Mexican wave is going round as they've just tried to sort out this scrum. Eventually they have managed to set themselves down, and Nick White gets the ball in for the Wallabies, who are inside of their own 22, and Rob Valentini is trying to rub themselves out of trouble. They're just trying to set something up to get this clearance kick to Carter Gordon. Gordon sends it up into the air, down on this near side wing, waiting for it as it goes out of play. That was a nice clearance there by Gordon, and all of a sudden the pressure is relieved.
So we talked earlier in the first half about exit strategies and how to get out of your 22. There's a perfect example of how to do it really well. Solid scrum, didn't scrum for a penalty. Rob Valentini burst off the back, the number 8, made good yardages, probably got 10 metres to the right of the scrum. Quick pass back from Nick White to Carter Gordon, who smoked it beyond the halfway line into touch.
Well, Georgia have marked up their Ryan out routine, and it's given the ball back to the Wallabies, and here comes Marika Korobetti. Is there more exciting a player or explosive a player at times with ball in hand, as Georgia just want to get back on side? Carter Gordon once again, he's had some nice kicks, he's getting some good distance on it now as the mark is called by Georgia in the end. It's all waiting for the players to go back behind them. Just a reminder, you're listening to 5 Live Sports Extra. It's Australia 21, Georgia 8. We're on 53 minutes here of this Pool C clash. Australia have scored 2 tries. Georgia have scored 1. But coming up a little bit later here on Extra, it will be the Women's US Open singles final. That one starts at 9 o'clock tonight. Sabalenka against Goff. That could be pretty exciting. Right then, you're not missing rugby because they're playing kick tennis, although I got told off yesterday by Paul Grayson for saying that kick tennis and ping pong is boring. She love it.
No, you got told off because it was exceptionally high quality.
There we go.
Now, some of this is some of this is a bit grotty.
Okay.
So you're okay. You're allowed to give this a little bit of a smack.
Okay. All right, line out far side, taken then by the Australians. Also onto the field now is Foketi. He tries to run it down. They're staying really tight in that far side channel at the moment. We did see some really unexpansive play by Australia in that first half, and I think they've been told, because they're trying to maintain keeping quite wide as Nick White sends the high ball up. That's going to be a mark that's called by the Georgians. And there's another Australian player down injured at the moment as the Georgians try to go quickly. I don't know if it's Skelton who's still in a little bit of trouble, but here come the Georgians. They're in clear space through the Stade de France, running straight into trouble was Nini Ashvili. No one was with him. There's no offside line. Here come the Australians once again. It's going to be Donaldson. He is going to be home and hosed. No one's going to catch Donaldson as he goes over for Australia's third try. Georgia just completely discombobulated. They had no support runners, and I tell you what, Australia said, thank you very much, we'll take that. Luke Donaldson goes over for try number 3.
Oh, an errant kick from Nick White, which was marked by Mabadze inside the 22. He tapped and went quickly. Perfect reading of the situation. Gave it to Ninyashvili. He broke through the middle. He had 3 Georgian players to his left, 2 to his right. All the backfield to chip the ball into. As it was, he ran straight into the Australian defender, got nailed in the tackle, threw a Hail Mary of an offload, which landed in Australian hands. Daniela Tupou, was it, with the quick carry and the one-handed lob over the top. But in all that open field, 3 or 4 decisions to make.
There you go.
There was only really one bad one, and that was the clatter into the nearest Australian, which he did. And then with nobody behind him, they'd all overrun him. He just threw it speculatively into the air. Picked up by the tight head prop, great acceleration, lovely ball over to his supporting fullback, and he's under the sticks.
That was a really interesting moment on the field that I don't know if you just heard Luke Pearce just saying there to Ben Donaldson, okay, it's coming, it's coming. Donaldson couldn't see the shot clock because they had the full replay covering the whole of the screen. So there's 90 seconds from the moment that the try is scored that the conversion has to be taken. And he was saying, I can't see it, I need to know time, basically because he wants to use every single second he's got as it goes down to 8-7 as he finally takes that kick at goal. It's all about conserving energy. It's the first time I've seen that happen.
Yeah, and it's a sensible thing to do. It's not just in this situation where it is blisteringly hot. You've got an allotted time where you can take the kick, and that's part of the strategy of the game, running the clock down and certain moments, not just giving your teammates a breather. Controlling time is really important. And now that they've got it, it's not a conversation with the referee. You don't have to ask the referee. You can see it on the big screen and navigate it for yourselves. But they were showing a full replay, so he's had half a panic.
He was too busy watching himself score on the screen, as it was Australia 28, Georgia 8 now. So it's a 20-point game in favour of the Australians. Still 20 minutes for us to play here at the Stade de France. Don't forget, focus on 5 Live later after 8 o'clock will all be about England and Argentina as they get underway in Pool D. Worth saying also, don't forget that tomorrow there's still more rugby as this opening weekend of the Rugby World Cup continues. It's Japan against Chile. That's also Pool D. That gets underway at midday. 4:45, that's a biggie. South Africa against Scotland. That's going to be live and 5 Live, 4:45. And then, of course, Wales against Fiji. I think there's going to be plenty to discuss after that one. That one kicks off at 8 o'clock. Right then, ball's just been knocked on by Georgia. Australia are contesting the ball on the floor, but that was a difficult place for Georgia to lose the ball. It was on their own 22-metre line, and we'll restart with the scrum to Australia, where they'll get a beautiful split of backs on either side of the field.
You just get the sense there that Georgia, it's virtually a 14-point swing when they make that break. Ninyashvili makes the break. They've got an opportunity to score the try, which would have brought them back within 8 points, with a conversion within 6. As it is, they find themselves on the wrong end of the 7 points. The gap extends. Ninyashvili drops the next ball that comes to him, passes it to Mabadze, has already been in the sin bin. He drops it, and all the air is out of their balloon because they were just about to get on the coattails of Australia.
A lot of changes going on for both sides at the moment. Suisali Vunivalu, he is on now for Australia. They've used all their backs on the bench now. Samuel Karevi is off the field. They've had a little bit of a rearrange. And some of the Georgians just making their way off the field as well. Becca Gogadze just going to take a seat at the moment. A little bit exhausting in this oppressive heat, but as we have said, the weather will break next week for the next round of matches. Just listen to referee Luke Pearce.
Okay, let's go then. What's a bit of a shoulder?
Just a little bit of a shoulder.
Well,
anyone who knows about scrums will know what that means. We will wonder if it's the left shoulder, the right shoulder.
Okay, keep that shoulder there, please.
There we go. It's all about keeping your shoulders in exactly the right place where the referee wants them. Australia 28, Georgia 8. Here on 5 Live Sports Extra.
Crouch! Bind! Set!
Well, that was Incredibly long build up to this scrum actually getting underway, and as we said, the Australian backs, they can go in either direction at the moment. It's Nick White who's peeling away off towards the right hand side of the field. Nice pass out to Carter Gordon, out on the far side, there he is, Nwanga Tawazi can't get the final pass away. Was that knocked on by the Australians? No, play on, says Luke Pearce.
Onside, please.
I think Georgia have actually managed to steal that on the floor. So they've got the ball, but they're stuck on their own try line. And this is a really tricky, we talked about exit a lot in this match. This is one of the toughest exits you have to do, because you can't actually have a ruck inside your own try area. It's got to be a box kick, so it's got to be got away quickly. It's going to go to the feet of Donaldson. He almost like he tripped over his own feet in the process of stopping that. Big tackle comes in by the scrum half in the end, Aprasidze. And Wallabies not dealing with this well, because the Georgians still have plenty in the tank here. They're getting up in their faces as there's a little dink over the top taken really nicely in the end by Nwanga Tawazi as the ball comes back inside. Nick White with a little hack through. He's trying to set something up for the back players to try and get onto something. It ends up going out of play on the far side. And Georgia have taken it quickly. You heard that play there from our referee. They did not want that line out at all, and they've actually done pretty well there, I have to say. They've ended up pushing the Wallabies back to the 10 metre.
Good exit. Nice little quick play.
Time off.
Badzi let the ball roll into touch, waited till everybody stopped and just turned around and expected him to go for a line out, flicked it to his fullback. Good hooking kick towards the left-hand touchline, got them out of trouble.
Okay, well, the water is coming onto the field, and it's coming on in quite impressive style. They've got these massive absolute cool boxes that you would probably see at a really good like barbecue party that's normally stuffed with beers. But it's going to be water, of course it is. So they're just going to take on a little bit of refreshment, and they've more than earned it. A reminder that Ireland, they managed to beat Romania. Just the 12 tries that the world number one side managed to rack up in that victory. 82-8 that one finished. Italy, they cruised to a win over Namibia. 52 points to 8 that one finished. I feel that the number 8 is getting quite significant, because right here at the moment it's Australia 28, Georgia 8 for the time being. But elsewhere today, there's still plenty going on in the world of sport right now. Action all over the place. Of course, head to the BBC Sport website if you want the latest on everything. We've got that European Championship qualifying Group C match between Ukraine and England. Still got about 20 minutes still to play in that one. It remains 1-1. Walker with the goal for England, the assist there by Kane. But Ukraine, they have equalised. Of course, it was an incredible result just last night for Scotland. They managed to come away 3-0 winners against Cyprus in their qualifier, and they could actually qualify for the Euros as early as next week. That they've done so well in that pool. And of course, we're on extra at the moment. I did remind you a little bit earlier that we have, of course, coming up that massive clash between Coco Gauff, the home favourite, an American woman, into that US Open final. I mean, she has been banging on the door for so long now, Coco Gauff, but of course she's got to take on the incoming world number one, Anya Sabalenka. Incredible clash. We're back underway though with the rugby, as it's the Wallabies who have the ball flying towards the Georgian 22-metre line. Gathered now by Nick White, manages to find Valentini, the big number 8, flying over the top, plays his rugby at the Brumbies, of course, and we get to see Will Skelton smashing his body through. A bit of footwork comes in by Vunivalu on this near side. Spun out ball. I have to say, both these sides, considering the conditions, are still playing some pretty bright, sparky rugby. Not too many signs of the conditions, which does show you it's perhaps a little bit better than it was last night. Vunivalu again, thought he saw a little bit of space or daylight inside of that defensive line from Georgia. He's made a good metre for his effort as well. Australian ball, this time they're pushed backwards. Dominant tackles coming in there by the Georgians, and it's stuck now for the Wallabies. They need to do something a little bit more adventurous, and they're once again, Paul Grayson, stuck all in like one sort of 10-metre square of the field. Finally, Vunivalu manages to come out to give them that little bit of depth, but it's taken a while for them to recognise they needed that.
Yeah, their attacking width was about 20 metres at that point. One man creates the width.
Here comes the crossfield kick. Vunivalu can't take it too much on that one by Carter Gordon. But we're talking about that. Why do Australia keep doing that?
Just in that system of how they want to attack in the 22. They look to set up 2 or 3 runners. I mean, they had good ball on the front foot from Skelton's carry. But once they get that dominant carry, it's what next? You need another one immediately after it to generate the pace to then take on defenders a little bit wider. He just seemed to end up getting cramped up. Stood 7 or 8 in a line, which is
You okay?
yeah, it's tough going today, but they've had 3 months together to have an idea of what to do in the opposition 22.
Well, cramp is beginning to hit quite hard for Cheshvili, who's down on the floor at the moment. He's just had a little bit of pickle juice, which I always think sounds absolutely disgusting. He's taking on a bit of water. He's had his calf stretched out and he's ready to go in for a little bit more. Did you have to do the whole pickle juice thing in your day? Or
Whatever the next fad is that fixes up cramps, people still get cramp, so they haven't fixed it yet.
What did you used to have?
I cannot remember, just don't run round as much.
Okay, that's a good one. I like that. That would be my style. Quite happy to do that as much as possible. There's also, I think, out on the field at the moment, I can see someone's receiving a little bit of treatment out there at the moment. I think it's Corabetti, who's just having his head wrapped up. I can imagine far better things to have done to me right now than having a massive black bandage around my head.
Just an extra layer, in case you weren't warm enough.
Yeah, and he has, whatever he's done, there is a decent amount of claret that's been running down the front of his top. I can tell you that the players' top's absolutely soaked in sweat. You can tell that. I mean, these are clingy shirts at the best of the time, but the way they're holding on to the players' bodies, you just know that they are putting a decent shift in here in the Stade de France. Right then, 63 minutes, 28 points the Wallabies have racked up to the Georgians 8. The Wallabies, they don't have a bonus point yet, and that will begin to become a little bit of a concern for them, such is the nature of the pool that they're playing in. And they're waiting for the ball to come out. La Marseillaise is starting to ring out around the Stade de France as the ball goes out of play on this near side. It was a Georgian who put the ball out. We restart with a Wallaby line out near side between the 10 and the 22 in the Georgian half.
And in fairness, Sarah, it is looking around. It is bank full. The Stade de France, an amazing amount of people. Nobody leaving. Everyone engaged in the game. Just promoting the home team a little bit now. Yeah,
definitely. And what has been really nice to see is coming off the bench, it's only his 4th cap there for Silassi Vuivalu, but he's been really bright. He has been hunting down the ball in only the way that a good winger really well, as Corabetti puts his bandaged head right into danger straight away. Just a little bit of juggle with the ball there by McWright as it goes down to the ground. Corabetti has already ripped that massive bandage off his head and is now running around, so he's going to get told off for that, and he's probably going to have that redone again. It's a knock on in an offside position there from the Wallabies, so it's going to be a penalty to Georgia. I don't know if they're going to let Corabetti continue with that or not. He went into that contact and he just ripped the thing off his head. I can see it sort of still lying on the floor there as the ball comes back now for McCarver. And finally, Georgia are out of their half. I mean, they've been down there for 10 minutes. They've taken quite a battering in that process. They have let a try in, but now they're just edging a little bit closer. I think this line-out is just inside of the Wallaby 22.
There was a great spot tackle there from Aprazidze, the replacement scrum half. Flew in, good read, forced the knock-on.
Ball comes in then for the Georgians. They've done well to hold on to that ball. Not interested in keeping it too tight. Here they come in full flight. Oh, they lost the ball forwards. They had a great breakthrough there by Gorga Kavzladze. He lost the ball in the contact, and it's a penalty Australia in the process as well.
Oh, that's a shame. It was a perfectly run move. They forced the penalty, won the line out. Nice little play, used Aprazidze, the scrum half, as the extra man. Shaped to go out the back and handed the ball off.
Huge frustration.
To Kavzladze, he was under the sticks then if he'd held on to that.
Okay, so the Wallabies go, all right, you had your moment, let's send you back. It's still just inside of the Wallaby half, but as it's a penalty, it's going to be their line out as they make their way up. This is a significant moment for Australia, which sounds ridiculous when I say that, but remember, they haven't won a test match since they beat Wales in Cardiff last November. It's been a long time since they've been able to celebrate a victory, as the ball comes in and it's disrupted there, but it ends up in the end still going out of play. So the Georgians managed to get a mitt to that, as we see a little baby wearing a England jersey just being held up for the screen, but the rugby continues. Don't worry, it was being kept nice and cool. It had his ear defenders on. If you are going to bring a baby to rugby, I would highly recommend that you do that because it can get pretty noisy. Ball down on the floor. And that's been held on the floor by the Georgians. So this is the kind of position where Australia, they need that bonus point try. And you might think, oh, this is a lovely penalty opportunity. No, this is drop it in the corner territory and get try number 4, Paul Grayson.
Yeah, crucial that they do. Bonus points, points difference, all come into the mix in a tight group. Points on the board early, very important.
Well, Nick White went and had a chat with Ben Donaldson and just said, just put it in the right place, and that's exactly what he's done. So, 5 metre line out for the Wallabies from the Georgian line. They're playing in this pool where they've still got the likes of Wales, Fiji, Portugal still to come. But a bonus point win here today does just make everything a little bit more comfortable. But for Australia, there will be bigger games. And George, we have to remember, they have won a couple of games at World Cups before. They're none too shabby.
Okay, 9, stay back 10.
Right then, big moment then. Ball comes in, stolen by the Georgians. It's brilliant. The Wallabies totally misread their own line-out call. And the clearance wasn't amazing because I think they were so shocked that they got the ball and the Wallabies have got it back 10 metres from the Georgian line.
It was a perfect lift from Georgia, wasn't exactly where the ball was going, not an Australian in sight.
Well, this time the Wallabies don't fluff their lines. They managed to get the ball, and this is a rolling ball. This got legs. McWright has it. He's nearly close to the line, almost single-handedly there. Aprasidze is trying to hold him up. 30 centimetres left for that ball to go over for try number 4 for the Wallabies. Not on this occasion. They have to recycle. Valentini wants it. He's calling for it. Is he over? Valentini says no, not to be on this occasion. Penalty advantage, though, for the Wallabies. They need to dig. They need to go again. More players wait. I can see waiting just there. Leota calling for it. Now he goes in to just support Valentini, who I think is going to pick and go once again.
Still advantage Australia.
Round the corner, Valentini. It's all a little bit tight, and the Georgians just got enough there to rearrange. Carter Gordon then on the explosion. Big pass out wide. So much space. And it is once again Donaldson who goes over for his second try. Try number 4. That's the one they wanted. Australia can relax.
Nice ball from Carter Gordon. Just took the ball to the line. Let Georgia make this mistake. Basically gave him the option. Clean kill off a good pass. Nice line out, good aggressive drive. 3 or 4 goes to try and drive over the line once the ball had gone to deck. And then Carter Gordon overcalled everything, said give it to me. They had an option to pick. They tried to jam and cut off the passing lanes. He had the ball over the top. Lovely finish from the fullback.
Well, Ben Donaldson playing at fullback. Let's not forget that traditionally he's a fly half, but this is the position that Eddie Jones now wants him to play. And a big boo just went up then. I don't know if it's because Eddie Jones was on the screen.
Pretty instantaneous, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? So
unless Macron's come back.
That is true. He got an awful big boo last night. Or I did find it amusing when he started talking about how amazing France was. Everyone started cheering again.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
He played it well.
He did. Okay, so Ben Donaldson is once again going to have to try and convert his own try. He should do, because it's a pretty straightforward one for him. That 5 metres to the right-hand side of the uprights, and he's just winding down the clock once again, so his teammates can have a breather. 10 seconds left on the shot clock as he finally makes his run up. That one straight in the middle. And one thing we can say from this match, that some of the kicks have been reasonably straightforward, but I think Eddie Jones has solved his problem about who his main kicker at goal is.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had a good game all round. Actually, Donaldson kicks the ball nicely off the tee. He's hit some good ones. That one was a bit of a gimme, but generally he's been pretty good. Andrew Kellaway has been one of the better Australian players, I would think, in attacking sense. So there might be more thought about exactly how to mix those players up.
Yeah, there was a huge amount of shot that Kellaway wasn't involved in this fixture. We did just see a nice shot on the big screens there of Tate McDermott, who is now down watching pitch side, but we've got another injury. This time it looks like it's Nick White who's taken a knock. So just as we see one scrum half who's looking a bit better, Nick White has taken a clattering, and the Georgians are still running. They're a man down at the moment, Australia. They're going to have to put in a little bit more effort, and Nick White is not doing well. He seems to have hurt his arm or his shoulder in some way. He's taken a big hit to his shoulder. The Georgians continue to pound away inside of the Australian half, and there's a little bit of afters going on the far side of the field as well. This game is getting really, really messy for so many different reasons, and Nick White is running up at the moment, holding his arm. I really hope he doesn't have to go into contact with that. And luckily the referee has stopped things, because it's still going on, the afters on the other side of the field. And the referee is now having to go over Luke Pearce. It's been called in. And I'm not sure Australia have got any replacements left if they did need to bring someone on, and I'm not sure who can actually play scrum half.
I'm sure Carter Gordon could slot into scrum half pretty easily. I think White looks in a little bit of pain. He's just doing the strength test, maybe got a stinger on his left shoulder, physio on, and he got hit fractionally late. Not too bad, I don't think, from Aprozidze, I think it was, in the red scrum hat. Just left a little bit on. Nick White.
Oh, sorry.
Left him with a sore shoulder, but White's back in the game. Seems to be okay. I've no idea what happened on the far side, though.
No, there was an awful lot going on in that passage of play. Luke Pearce has gone and broken them all up. There was no sort of swinging arms or anything like that, but there was a lot of I'd like to be in your face, you can be in mine, and then a few of their friends coming to join in.
It's the jersey holding contest, was it?
Yes. I don't know who won it, but it's over. That's the main thing that you need to know. Far side of the field will restart with a Georgian scrum when things finally get underway. For people who don't know, what is a stinger? We say that a lot.
Well, I'm not going to get into a medical definition of whatever stinger is, but when you bang your shoulder really hard and you lose a little bit of sensation down your arm, the nerve takes a bit of a whack, and it takes a moment or two for the strength to come back. It feels a little bit awkward, but just like Nick White there, once that sensation's gone away, you get all the strength back, and you're back in the game. But momentarily, you wonder whether you've really done something quite nasty. But it does go away.
Did you get a few of them?
Yeah, it's a relatively common thing. Collision sport and all that.
Well, Nick White is okay. He's actually banging his shoulder right now, as he's, I think, as Paul Grayson says, he's just trying to make sure that any pins and needles or anything just it's completely flushed out of the system. As we actually see Aprozidze there, who's the other scrum half, just giving a little bit of a glare, as if to say, get back where you were. Right, here comes the ball from the Georgian scrum. Aprozidze is there, gets it towards the back line. The Georgians are in full flight. They could get numbers on this near side. It's gone out in the end. This is going to be a Georgian try. They've knocked on the ball over the line. Aprozidze.
Yeah.
Oh, the whole of the Stade de France feels exactly the same as us. That was so well worked. Simple, basic rugby, but big tackle came in. Take a bow. Nwanga Nitoazi. And the frustration there is Aprozidze slams his fist to the floor.
And it's just, unfortunately, for the right winger. They ran the move perfectly. I was calling for him to cut underneath from up here, but he held his width. He got put in, and at the line, he's still upright, and he's aware he's going to get whacked. If he'd gone down early and scored at the line, there's no way the Australian cover would have made any contact with him. He's a brilliant finisher in that moment, just slightly exposed that he was caught in the wrong moment, bracing for a collision when he should have been celebrating a try.
29 tries for him in a Georgian shirt, but not one today. He has got 7 minutes as the clock just goes over. 7 minutes left of this game to try and get it Australia. So Australia 35, Georgia 8. This is going to be an Australian victory, but Georgia are still playing. Ball comes out the back. It's Gleeson who's now on the field for the Wallabies. Nick White has the ball. Georgia warned. They've been warned a lot about offside, the Georgians. They've given away 13 penalties so far in this match. And that's the one thing as the ball goes out of play on the near side, and we'll restart with a Georgian line out on the halfway. Discipline for the Wallabies, only 6 penalties given away, much better. Yeah,
it's a much better number. They'll face much sterner tests in this in the pool stages, should they make it through in the knockout phases of the competition. It's interesting that you think whenever Georgia have threatened, Australia have given a penalty away, so under stress with a lot more content coming towards them, It still might be there, just that temptation to try and solve the puzzle yourself, which often leads to penalties given away, but we've got to give them credit for the numbers today. And they've stayed on the right side of the referee too, in general, but you fancy if they'd been a gear or two up, they could have put Georgia away by a lot.
Well, there's been a few real silly mistakes, I have to say, from Georgia in this match. That one coming at the line out, their replacement hooker, Zamtaradze, he tried to do the just little short pass towards the front of the line, but you've still got to be straight. You still can't just pass it to your player.
That's the temptation, isn't it? He can throw the ball 15 metres, land it on a pinhead. There, he's just passed it straight to his friend, who's 1 metre offline.
So it gifts with a little bow on top a scrum to Australia on the 15 metre on the halfway. And scrum has been a reasonably solid platform for the Australians as they come away with the ball now. Going through the guts of it is Foucault as he manages to come away with it. Gordon passes out wild. Donaldson getting involved in that one, and here he comes, Nwanga Tawazi, who's been involved in so much in this fixture. Oh, there was a huge clattering going on there as one of the Georgian bodies in the form of Kazvadze took a real tumble. There's still players down on the floor. This is not well constructed rugby. This is slightly desperate rugby from the Georgians, but it has managed to slow down the Wallaby ball. 75 minutes on the clock, comes back once again. Huge clattering going in there on Nongor, who's now onto the field, but he's been knocked on by the Wallabies. So I have to say, it might not always be a perfect Georgian defensive line, but it's certainly determined.
There's one thing for sure, they never shirk the collision, the Georgians. Putting some thunderous hits.
Let's go, Australia.
Occasionally get exposed technically, but there's never a lack of shoulder in.
There's a very familiar name in the Georgian defence coach in the form of Joe Worsley. I'm sure a lot of you will remember him, and I think you remember him very well, probably, Paul Grayson. Played against him a number of times.
Played a lot with and against Joe. Master of the chop tackle. Relentless defender, played in a very good Wasp team. Riding shotgun for Lawrence Delalio. If he didn't get you, Joe would.
Joe Worsley's been coaching a lot in France in recent years, but currently with the Georgians for this World Cup, who are now coming away with the ball and running out of their own half towards this near side. The wingers trying to work together at the moment, and once again Tabasadze has lost the ball in the contact, and I think it's something the Wallabies have really targeted with him, is they've realised he's a danger, so instead of taking him, just make sure you get something on that ball and just dislodge it.
You can see by the look on his face that he's still thinking about that missed opportunity to score a try here at the Stade de France against Australia. Gift wrap for him. Just made the wrong decision in the moment. Looks a little haunted.
Do you still have moments like that keep you up at night? You remember something?
Every now and again, just a missed kick here or there pops into your brain to keep you awake.
Yeah. Well, this is a bit of a mess on the floor from the Georgians. We've only got 2.5 minutes to play now. Australia 35, Georgia 8. England, Argentina still to come. Don't forget tomorrow, Scotland against South Africa, Wales against Fiji, Georgia running away. Oh, is this going to be redemption? Here he comes, Aka Tabasadze. He's eventually brought down. It's not been knocked on, it's gone out of play, but he made a good half length of the field there. He wants more. They're not giving up easily.
Great stuff from Georgia, swinging the ball from one side of the field to the other. 3 long passes, then they straighten, and the ball back inside to Tabasadze. Hits the afterburners, calls a man in, calls a man out, sells the dummy. Not the worst option, then loses control of the ball. Good ambition.
Okay, so the ball is back for the Wallabies after they win their own line out. Carter Gordon sends it high into the sky, manages to land out on the far side of the field. Thrown back inside, taken then by Modabadze, but
22 offside.
Australia are offside, so we're going to come back. There's going to be a last throw of the dice, and it's going to be a Georgian throw.
Georgia.
Well, I think Luke Pearce is going to let them redo it because it's not taken from the mark.
The mark's from the mark. Here's the mark.
15 metres away from the mark. The referee's running towards it.
Referees do like being there, don't they?
Well, he has to make the mark for you to play from it.
Right then, Abza Hansa drops it in the corner. The last throw of this match will be a Georgian line out. They nearly scored off the last one they had in this position. It was dislodged in the end. The Wallabies would really like to ruin this party. Confirmation that 75,700 are in here in the Stade de France. Not quite a sellout, but they'll take that close enough. As the ball goes long from the Georgians, chop back down. They're running forward. It's their captain going forward in the form of Shirakadze. Still Georgian ball. Surely they're going to go over the line here. Try! It's been building, it's been coming, and in the end, it's a forward who delivers. The Georgian flags start going in the air. It came off the line out. A couple of nice bursts forward by the forwards, and Georgia go over.
And rather than letting the clock tick into the red, take the conversion quickly. They fancy another crack. No more than they deserve. They've blown a couple of chances. They had a breakaway early in the game, which ended up in an Australian try when it could have been a 7-pointer for them. Tabutsadze blew a golden opportunity. What's after golden? Something more precious than that.
Platinum.
It was a platinum opportunity, wasn't it? Not a golden opportunity. But finally they got their try.
Time on.
They do deserve it. They've been bettered by Australia, but they've never given up.
Well, there is just enough time for the restart, although the clock has now gone into the red because the Georgians did take that conversion as quick as they did. Australia 35, Georgia 15. Last play of the ball as Georgia wait to gather it. Now, they've got 2 tries, the Georgians, so they're not even playing at the moment to try and get a bonus point try. They're just playing for pride right now. I always have a bit of a concern about people playing for pride when there's nothing on the match and you could get injured in the process doing it. This is a long World Cup, and really wish the messages would come on and say no. Get the ball off, look after yourselves. Could make a big difference in this tournament. But the Georgians are insisting on playing. We actually saw something very similar earlier today when we were watching the end of the Italy-Namibia game. Neither side wanted to get the ball out of play. They were desperately trying to keep it in the whole time. Eventually, Abrisadze runs across the field. They're going backwards at the moment, Georgians. They're nearly back to their own 5-metre line, so I don't know how long this is going to continue for, as eventually the ball is knocked on.
No hands, 21.
No, it was hacked on. It's managed to be turned over by the Wallabies in the process. There's definitely a Georgian player offside there that the referee hasn't seen. Carter Gordon comes forward now. He's still going on his own. He needs the support line. It's going to be going forwards. Out of play on the far side. That is that. Australia win their opening match of Pool C in this Rugby World Cup. They've beaten Georgia 35 points to 15. Australia, they are still definitely a work in process, but against an opposition like Georgia, they did manage to keep their discipline pretty clean today. Ben Donaldson is proving to be quite the force as the kicker, but there's still plenty in their style of play that needs to be tidied up, Paul Grayson.
Yeah, convincing win in the end, really, for Australia. It's hard to know. Yesterday we said France didn't get out of third gear. I don't know how many gears Australia have. Didn't look like they got much more than 3, so they didn't massively test Georgia, but they did enough to put them away. Georgia didn't take their chances, never really pressurised the Australians. Set piece was a good battle. The scrum went well for both teams. Not a huge amount of content in the game, but a lot of goodwill towards the Georgian team from the 75,000 spectators here. I think Wales will sit back and look at that and think, OK, if we can take care of business against Fiji, they'll fancy Australia. Georgia will be looking at Portugal and maybe Fiji to try and get a win out of this group. But as it is, Australia get away with 5 points.
Well, as we say, Australia, Wales, Fiji, Georgia and Portugal make up Pool C, and it is Australia who sit pretty at the top of that pool for now, because it's only the first game of that. Just a quick word on Georgia. We covered a lot of their history and the way they play. What is it they can really hang their hat on from that performance, from your point of view? Who were the standout players? They
created opportunities across the team. They butchered 2, scored a couple, and when they did get the ball and get out of that trap that Australia set early on when they just pushed them deep and they couldn't get their kicking in order, I think across the team their general shape was pretty good. We did see some good stuff from Ninyashvili at the back. Tabutsadze, you can see why he scored a load of tries this year. I thought the halfbacks were good, the replacements made a difference. And up front, Bulgadze carried the ball well. Cheshvili was busy in the front row, as usual for Georgia, put in a shift. So you can see definite progress there today. I think the conditions hampered them physically a little bit. but to their credit, they stuck in till the end and kept going.
Well, it is Ben Donaldson who's been awarded the Player of the Match award here for this performance, and there will be a lot of Australians who will be quite relieved that he's put in that kind of a shift after all of the upheaval that came with Andrew Kellaway being dropped. But that is it from here at us at the Stade de France. Thank you so much to Paul Grayson and to our producer Victoria Turner, who, let's face it, this has been a long hot slog the last 40 hours, but it's been fabulous at the same time. The World Cup is definitely underway in Paris. Don't forget, England against Argentina kicks off at 8 o'clock over on 5 Live, but it's all over here at the Stade de France. It's finished Australia 35, Georgia 15.
Rugby World Cup 2023 on 5 Live, Radio 5 Sports Extra and the BBC Sport website.